Ready to go live? Yes, we're live, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to the Musty Wargamers Show, Episode 2, Season 7. And tonight we have special guests. Dan. Say hi, Dan. Okay.
Hi, Dan.
And we have Dwayne
Hi.
from Plastic Crack Gaming.
What's the crack?
And then coming late to the show, once again,
There he
our fearless cohort in crime, Palmer, a.k.a. Heresy.
Hello, everyone. Always
Yeah.
a pleasure.
It's always like great when you're like seconds before the show starts, like, wait a minute, I don't have my musty drink.
I can't do this without one. No, I'm just kidding.
I need my liquid courage.
No, I truly can. It's part of it. No, I could. We could do I was thinking if we ever did a show like early during the day, we'd have to do like coffee or something like that.
What's
But,
coffee?
That's true. You'd have to have something that resembles a caffeinated drink since you don't drink caffeine. Herbal tea.
Yeah, I could do some tea, like decaf tea. Definitely could do that. Got plenty of it. I drink it by the
Herbal
gallon. Herbal tea. Made from herbs.
You don't drink caffeine, really?
Oh, heck no.
Hmm.
No. I gave that stuff about 26 years
Herbs.
ago. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah, most of the people I talk to that give it up actually never go back. Like that really give it up. They say it's better. But I don't know. Like, I just find mornings so much more fun with caffeine than without.
morning, let me tell you, it's like I can wake up in the morning and I don't feel bad at all. I just get mosey around, do whatever I want to do. It's like before I gave up caffeine, I'd be like, it's like that vicious cycle. Let's get caffeinated, and get going. And it's like after I gave it up, I'm like, you know what? I actually feel better than I did before I needed.
Yeah. Well, most people I talk to, like, there are a lot of people that have stomach issues and stuff ultimately and don't connect it to the caffeine and with other things too and stuff. And yeah.
Well, for me, it was raising my blood pressure so high that it's like, so your resting heart rate is like 150 over 110. I think you got a problem. Like, maybe. So I get wired for sound. Heck, I can eat a small Hershey's chocolate, like a dark chocolate little Hershey, and that will raise my blood pressure. That's how it affects me that bad. No. I don't.
I try do the
Really?
don't drink any caffeine for the first 2 hours of the day and then go from there, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, it was for me. It was like get going with a couple of things in the morning, and then the rest of the day I'm fine. But even that was enough to really blow me up. All right, we got.
Welcome Back Games is in the house. Just
Yes.
saying hello.
All right, we got hello. And you guys are driving Palmer to drink. Yes, we are.
Well,
He says he gave it up.
We got a big BattleTech culprit in the house tonight, so
They
He
came
says
prepared.
He gave up coffee 29 years ago. It's like I never started coffee. It's like how can something smell so good, taste so bad?
In my career, I've taken courses in pharmacology, and there was a time, when I had to be into work at 7 a.m. regularly, which I'm not a morning person. And I just noticed that after 2 cups of anything caffeinated, halfway decent, I am over the moon happy to go into work. Like there is actually absolutely something psychoactive with caffeine. Like I am convinced, and I think if you actually looked at the receptors and looked at all the literature, it probably would support it anyway. I don't think I'm saying anything but like just through observation, like just shamanism observation of how, like caffeine is, and so whether that's a good thing or not, because I don't drink beer going into work, but it's just I absolutely can be so motivated and just whatever, which I generally cannot without. And so I don't know.
Well, it's like Palmer. Why are you looking so psycho this morning? I have 2 cups of coffee. Well, get off the ceiling. He's like, they done studies and shown that if they had found caffeine today, it would almost be a controlled substance. That's how addictive it is.
Well, aspirin would absolutely not be just over the counter if it was discovered today. Absolutely not. Too dangerous, just for different situations and things. But I think I had one time, I know we probably should get back to the show, but I had one time where I was talking to someone after in the middle of the day when I'd had a large Starbucks, which those things are like pure caffeine, like bubbling. And I remember I was like finishing this guy's sentences, when he was trying to talk to me. And literally the guy said to me, he's like, "Can I cut in?" Something's like, like, and ever since that, whenever I saw this guy, I always joked about it afterwards because I never forgot.
Why cut in?
Yeah, you might
like
cut into him in here.
There's been a couple times. There's one guy I knew. He was like, he'd have a cup of coffee. He's just and I was like, calm down.
Absolutely.
like, well, oh yeah, okay, I'm calming down. He's like, I can't understand a word you're saying because you rattle it off so fast.
Yeah,
you're wired for sound, man. All right.
Anyway, we should probably do our thing, like our start of the show ritual.
Oh yeah, introduction time. Who wants to start? What you up to? What have you been up to? We haven't seen a lot from Dan nor Dwayne in forever. What have you guys been up to this summer?
Well, let Dan go first. Go on.
Why don't we go clockwise from Dan?
All right.
We'll go clockwise.
All right, Dan, you're the man.
We'll go to Dan and then Dwayne.
All right. Let me see if I can remember how this works out. There we go. Hi, Dan. Uh-oh.
Hi, how are you?
Kind of froze there.
It's been a busy summer like it always is on the farm, I guess. So I did stay in touch with painting. I did try to paint. I painted every week. It was just little fits and starts, I guess. But mostly I've been working on my American War of Independence at 28 millimeter. Started did a unit for the Continentals, and then I did 3 regiments for the British. And let's see, actually, I got primed up this week. Another regiment for the British. That's the Perry's Plastics that I got from Palmer.
Cool.
Yeah. Remember when it's
Seems like
maybe
a
it's
long
been
time
almost
ago
2
now.
years ago. Yeah, it's been a hot
be.
minute.
Wow. Time
Yeah,
flies.
it could be. I literally. But anyway, that was fun gluing them together. Got them always. I base them individually, and glue sand on the bases, and then prime them. And so I got that done, and then I've kind of got. And I don't know if it's some of the bolt action bug you guys have, but I over the last 3 years I've been collecting a pretty good box full of makings for terrain for the Stalingrad table that I've been wanting to do after I'd done my Stalingrad German or Soviet force. Yeah, because all I've got for terrain for table wise is basically a Normandy table. That's what I'm actually working on tonight. Just starting to work on the brickwork. This is a resin
nice
building. Yeah, and actually each wall comes as a separate piece, and then I cut this base and pinned it, glued it down, and then I built the floor up there just from scratch, and then the rubble and stuff, just added that. I don't know if you can really see, it's not the best, but there's 2 of them, and I made them so they would they could either go together like one big building, or you could arrange them like this or have them further apart or whatever. And then I've got these same 2 kits again, but I'll swap the one side with the other side because they'll actually fit. So then I can have 4 corners that are all different. And then I built the second story on there too. And so I've been working on that.
Who made those
and
kits?
another resin build that they're I got them from Frontline Games. Not that Frontline Games. If you do a Google search, all one word, Frontline Games. It's Frontline. It's front hyphen line games. They're in Texas.
Yeah,
And I can't quite. I just stumbled across. I don't know if you've gotten stuff there before, anybody, but
they do table mats. They're
have
really
a
known
lot.
for their table mats.
No. See, you're thinking of
Fat mats?
Frontline Games, one word. But this
Oh,
is hyphen
okay.
front
Sorry.
hyphen line.
Okay.
Yeah, because Frontline Games, all one word, fine, is their table mats, and
The fat mats. And
so
stuff.
if you do a Google for them, that's who's going to come up. But it's actually a place in Texas, and it's hyphen line games,
Man, that's gotta be a
and
rough.
is real. Yeah, which is, I don't know why, because that's not, you got to look hard to find it when you type it in. So I'm sure it gets overlooked a lot, but it's as real as it gets is the theme. But those buildings, I haven't seen them anywhere else. And so somehow, I don't know if he's hooked up with a company or I don't really know, but they're
Maybe
not
he's hooked up
expensive.
with-
They're incredibly
He
detailed.
could-
What's
he
that,
could-
Palmer?
Maybe he's hooked up with Frontline Games.
Yeah, probably it's his sister company. Well, and then this is another building that he actually does make these kits. And it's a factory series. And each it's like Legos. All these pieces are all separate. And I don't mean this whole wall. I mean this wall was built individually. This little piece here is separate. The top piece is separate. The front is a separate piece. Over here is about 3 pieces put together. And so
looks gorgeous.
and then it comes with this MDF base. And then and it's resin, and you glue it together however you want. And then actually this balcony up here comes with the kit. I added a few things. There's some piping in here in the corner, but it's his modular factory series, and he actually makes them. And then it comes, this kit that I got came with 4 of these, 2 of them, and then it just all comes like a box of Legos, so you can just build it however you want. And there's all kinds of ideas, and there's a gallery online to get ideas, and then you make them so they can fit together in a modular fashion. But anyway, so I got that primed, and that's going to be the next thing I'll start working on. And it comes with, I guess, a roof too, which so you can have the roof on or just have it be ruined, but kind of a cool little building. And it's good size. So I kind of got focused on wanting to try to knock out a bunch more of my Stalingrad table. And I'm kind of squirrel mode, but I'm sticking to like I said, my AWI through the summer. And I'm going to paint at least 1 or 2 more regiments and work on this train on the side. But also the other interests I've got is 15 millimeter American Civil War. And then the other thing that's really kind of been grabbing me is following the old world release, and it's making me want to add a little bit more to my Bretonians, even if I end up just playing 5th or 6th edition with them, or if by chance, the somewhat local scene down in Omaha is, they kind of get going on the old world and it looks decent, then I would be able to just take my 5th edition stuff down and play, or at least see what it is. But with all the buzz and all the people posting pictures and stuff, kind of sucks me in a little bit to at least want to paint mine, whether I partake in that or not. So, but anyway, that's finally kind of wrapping up harvest here. So the last 8 weeks or so, I haven't done a lot of serious hobbying. So it's kind of nice to get back into it. So. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's me.
Yeah,
And I don't have a musty drink, but I'm drinking Kool-Aid. So literally drinking the
through
Kool-Aid.
the wall. Smashing through the wall. Was that fruit punch?
Yeah. No, maybe you're right. No, that is Kool-Aid, isn't it? The big pitcher.
Yeah, crashing
It's
through the
actually
wall.
Yeah.
It's cherry Kool-Aid. It's literally Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Yeah. I always liked mixing fruit punch with
The
orange.
big pitcher guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right to
What is
wall.
the fruit of the loom guy again?
Oh.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay.
they're
Well, that'd be something new.
that's the fruit
Oh,
of
They
the
had
loom
the
guy.
different guy.
He's
Oh
a
yeah.
big thing of fruit.
That
He's a
was,
big thing of
that
fruit.
was the commercial.
Well, I remember the
Standard.
guys that were dressed as fruit,
Yeah, that's the fruit of the loom. Fruit.
but I
of the
thought there was a
Loom.
cartoon too. I don't know why.
Hmm.
Fruit of the Loom.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to
That's
be
a segue.
No, I did share the link up there for Frontline Games, so people can find it. If they want to look for it. There you go.
Did you have your evening?
Yeah, there
code,
you
though,
go.
Dan?
Yep. And then the buildings are another series, but you'll find them on his site. It's reasonably priced, and I don't know. It kind of wanted to do something different. Everybody always you see people's tables, and you're like, oh yeah, that's foreground stuff, or that's Sarissa, or that's. I mean,
Yeah.
and I kind of wanted to do something. So
So the
that
one
was
you're working
kinda
is that the Stalingrad ruins.
little
that
inspiration
you-
there too.
Then there's the rail set. Oh man, there's
That's-
a lot of good stuff in this. Is it all MDF or is it resin? Wasn't sure.
Oh yeah. All the stuff I have here is resin.
Okay.
He does sell and other things, but these modular buildings are that I held up that I'm painting the brick series, that modular factory series.
So that's part of the modular factory there.
But and it's fun because they're kind of kits. Basically, you can build them how you want. Right?
Yeah. It's like I
It's
keep
all,
wanting
it's
to
all
add to
modular,
my.
which I like, and it's heavy duty, nice quality. There wasn't a lot of cleanup.
Yeah, with my 3D printer I have, I've been wanting to.
I'm like addicted to the resin buildings. I just love resin buildings.
Yeah.
I like resin in general. I mean, I don't like when it's really thin miniatures, like small thin miniatures, because I do find, at least my experience, a lot of times with certain resins, it can be really breakable. But I love like tanks and buildings, and then like big miniatures and stuff. Like I have a resin miniature to show tonight later, but it's just it's a big miniature, but it's just yeah, like it has like a heft. It has a nice feel to it.
Yeah, I've been just today I found.
You know, you cut off there. I guess he's frozen.
Well, I thought it
Oh,
was
Mr. Freeze
just
is back. I thought it was just me,
Yeah,
but
Iceman.
Iceman.
Oh man.
cold as ice.
Oh, you froze up on us there, Mr. Freeze.
Well, like I said, it's like they've been tearing everything, all the cables and stuff out here, and it's like I went all day today without internet. So, like,
You better move to another guest real quick before you freeze again.
yeah, it's like frozen. It's like Mr. Iceman.
Yeah,
Hey, you got to do something, man. It's an ice edge.
Mr. Iceman.
I'm Mr. Freeze. Well, I'm
Mr.
Nighthawk. I'm Dragon.
We're going into the DC.
Here we are
universe.
back in the Marvel stuff again. Oh my god.
Mr. He's the DC.
DC.
Anyway, Dwayne.
Yo, what's the crack?
So what does
What's
the
Dwayne been
ocean
doing?
hold for us today, Mr. Dwayne?
What is the ocean hold for you? Well,
Yeah,
best
yeah,
of luck
yeah.
on that front. I'm not too sure, but over the
You
far
haven't
side
been
of
doing much
the
fishing
Gotta be
lately?
BattleTech.
Not
I
doing much
haven't
fishing?
been. No, I haven't been fishing much this year.
This
I've
time
been
of the year.
going. I've been going a bit crazy with BattleTech events. So this year, we ran regional tournaments in Ireland. So there's 4 provinces.
Cool.
So myself and a few others, we did a regional tournament scene,
Hmm.
and I organized one of them. I helped as a referee in another, and then I attended 2 of them, and then we did a nationals, So I did the nationals. That's normally down in another county down in Limerick, which was being run by Gary Jackson for years, and decided to bounce it up to my city this year, the capital. And I ran that. We did it up in the Maldron Hotel up by the airport. So we ran the nationals event after the regionals. So that was 5 tournaments, and I've been to loads of conventions. I went to Eschen Spiel with Catalyst. I went along with Catalyst as a demo agent, and
Oh, cool.
showed people how to play Leviathans and BattleTech. And
Man, you've been busy.
yeah, I've played or participated in a good few tournaments. What I'm painting now is for the English Nationals over in Leeds. It's in about 2 weeks. So all my mechs
That's
I'm trying to
awesome.
do. I'm doing in my tournament colors. So my tournament colors are the like Irish flag, but it's like the Davian colors. So it's green as the base, and then it has like a white and an orange stripe instead of like the blue, white, and red. So that's what I'm doing tonight. I'm painting up my mech selection for that tournament. And I'm going over there in about 2 weeks, and that will be my last BattleTech event for the year. But I've been very busy. It's
You
mostly
must
been
like it.
tournaments. Oh yeah,
You
I
must like
love.
that game.
Well, I love the tournament scene for it, and it's got such a good community here.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've done loads. Like there's been loads that has happened this year. There was like I remember there was a Kickstarter party earlier in the year that was hosted down in Limerick in the Gathering down in Limerick with Gary Jackson, and Randall Bills came over and then drove them down and showed them a bit of Dublin, a bit of the history of the city, and then the guys in Limerick would have shown them a lot more, a lot of historical stuff, and yeah, so it's been fun, like you know what I mean. And yeah, we're already getting ready for next year, like UK Games Expo and Eschen Spiel again, and we're organising the tournaments. I think we're gonna do an Alpha Strike tournament this year, so we'll probably alternate what tournaments we do. So I'll probably do an Alpha Strike tournament, like the National Alpha Strike tournament, and all official Catalyst games, by the way. So we'll probably get that done, and we're
Cool.
looking at doing the regional tournament for our province in March at one of college conventions. So yeah, I've been very busy on the event front and demoing games, and having fun playing a lot of BattleTech, as you can tell. I haven't been doing much fishing, sadly, though. I only got it once or twice. I didn't catch any mackerel, but sure, there's always like next year. But yeah, I've a good few bits and pieces lined up. I have an orc army I need to build for next year. I'm one of the 6 war bosses of the apocalypse, or the apocalypse, the war bosses. Myself and 5 friends who each have YouTube channels. We have one channel together, and we meet up once a year. And last year we didn't do a meetup this year, but last year we did a big mega battle. You can find it on the channel if you go looking for the orc war bosses. And that was fun. It was like several thousand points aside, and just one side versus the other, coming up with their own special scenarios. But the next time around,
Wow.
I'm going to build a themed army. So the plan is, the joke is, because I always have to fly in, I don't really bring a lot of big miniatures. So I'm going to do like a flying army. I'm going to do like apocalypse now. So it'll be like the Chinook Warcopters. I'll try and build them like Hueys. And I'll have like 2 Huey sort of kit bash copters built from trucks, and then I'll bring storm boys and like commandos and stuff, and it'll be like the sort of orc airborne cavalry attack. Just like a purely teamed army. I don't think it'll be any good, but like if I bring like death copters and storm boys and Chinoorks, the whole idea being I fly in and I literally fly in with the boys. So that's the plan.
That's
Looks like-
exciting. You're involved with a lot of stuff. That's good.
Yeah.
Very dedicated. Very dedicated. That's excellent.
So is
You have
the-
a lot of energy. I don't feel like I have the energy even as a gamer for that. That's commendable.
Just the,
I can barely get myself to paint miniatures.
But I'm not great on the painting front, but I just think it's been part of a good community. Like you can't help but get involved if you get me. Yeah, over the past couple of years, I've just been saying yes to being involved in things, and it's snowballed and got me stuck into what I'm doing now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
But it's fun.
I'll share. I'll talk more about that during my portion later.
Looks
'Cause
like
that's
Chris
an
is
interesting
bouncing.
point. What's that? Oh, okay. Thanks for stopping in, Chris. Much appreciated. Good to see you.
Yeah, if you've seen it,
Clark has joined in, by the way.
Yep, I've seen that. We were
Yeah,
up to
hey,
10,
Chris.
10 people
Yep.
a second ago. Now we dropped down to 6. But... So that's I'd say I can't remember the last
So
time
is the
I was
scene
at
in
a...
Ireland really growing BattleTech wise then, Dwayne? Or
Oh yeah, massively. I mean, there's always been sort of like an old school core, like the folks in Limerick, like Gary and John Summers and Tony, like the lads down in Limerick have been keeping it ticking over, you know what I mean? Keeping the fire stoked for years and years. But it's really sort of since they started bringing out the new plastic miniatures, the new beginner box set, the new game of Armored Combat, there's been renewed interest. Then the Kickstarter happened and it gained popularity, and then they've done this Kickstarter again. But it's a case of um, like it's a case of just finding players, really. You know what I mean, and getting the game out there and exposing it. A lot of people know what BattleTech is, either from back in the day where they're like, "Hey, I've a load of this in my attic." You know, if they're older gamers or if they're newer, sometimes they're like, "Oh, I played the video games. I played MechWarrior 5. I played BattleTech," or they know of it from the wargaming scene. A lot of people have heard of BattleTech. Um, yeah, so anytime like we've done a tournament in a store, we'll get a rake of people who are like, "Oh, where can I game? Where can I find it?" For instance, there was a games convention last weekend that we went to, and the guys were running participation games. I sat down and was painting, um, painting these guys up actually.
Hmm.
And one of the hotel staff was like, "Hey, I live out your area. I want to play BattleTech because I run a store. Like I run the Plastic Crack Gaming store." So, got him a box set, and he's coming to the next meet. So it's like you'll find BattleTech players everywhere. I find it funny, like they just crawl out of the woodwork. But it's growing. It is. It's growing. It's a vibrant community. It's very positive. It's great to be part of. And yeah, and it's great to see it like that it's growing. I think all we've done really is try to gather people together. I find, yeah, I don't know if it's a thing in general, but I find that you'll find there's pockets of players, they're just not aware of each other, and a lot of people don't go looking for each other. So if you facilitate trying to network players, you'll be surprised how many there is. So we created like Facebook page BattleTech Ireland to try and connect people, and
right.
we created a Discord, and we make posters and we set up dates and events, and myself and a few friends, we get a venue and we set up dates, and I'll put the posters up in model shops, and they'll
Right.
help as well, like in the local comic book stores, the local gaming stores. Try and get it out there visually. But yeah, it's growing. It's growing. It's great. Like it's going from strength to strength. It's good to see.
Yeah, it's just like we have a small little community of players here in Des Moines that, they show up every once in a while.
Good. That's yeah.
It's kind of an interesting is that every once in a while we'll like play at the shop, and you'll suddenly people just come walking in. It's like, oh, it's like I played BattleTech before. It's like, hey, if you want to get together, we can always start a campaign or something. That's the interesting thing is that get him. I like playing campaigns versus just pickup games, but I always like the whole get him into the fluff more of the game, which is there's a huge amount of fluff in this game. Right?
Mm-hmm. So that comes into it, like when you're explaining to people, they're curious about how do you build forces and what forces do you need to build. And I mean, typically when we're playing our gaming nights, we go, if you build a force of 7,500 BV, you'll get a game in with someone. We all have forces that size, but like some of the guys are playing campaigns. Some of the guys will, oh, I want to try aerospace out. Let's play an aerospace game, or they might want to play the larger sort of strategy scale games, which my brain can't remember off the top of my head. Where it's the units, so it's like the hex chits units fighting each other, or they'll play Alpha Strike as well. So it's like you get them in with a set amount, just as a structure for them to come into, and then say it to them. It's like, look, there's lore, so you can build your forces based on lore if you want to. You could pick a specific faction and pick an era and go, right, okay, they only had these units available. I'm going to build my force like that. Or you can just, pick a favorite character if you want to play and do up that paint scheme, and it's very freeing. And I think a lot of wargamers aren't used to that, which is kind of unique for them, because they're a lot of them will come from 40k where they're told where it's very sort of hammered out for them. It's like you're only allowed this, you're only allowed that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You need so many of these guys, whereas, it's a lot more freeform with Battletech. You can just have fun. It's like, how do we set up a game? And it's like, well, what type of game do you want to set up? Do you just want to just do straight up battles, which is what we do with people, But we have, like, the guys are really good. They've got a lot of painted forces. We give demo games to folks. So people who literally have no miniatures or never played war games before, we've gotten to come up to the gaming nights. And we just teach them Battletech, give them a Lend of a Force. We have battle mats. We have all the battle mats, so we have, battle mats for people to play on. There's no charge. Like, we play in the function room of a pub, and it's like we buy food there, we buy drinks there, so, they make their money out of us that way. That helps pay for things. And so it's like there's no charge for people. There's no cost of entry. It's like, just show up, we'll teach you how to play, you'll have fun. And yeah, they do, and it works that way. It's great.
Yeah, that's what I always tell. It's like when we're playing a campaign game someplace, it's like, he's like, hey, if you want to stop, you say, just grab a seat here. We'll just give you a mech to go rampaging around with. It's not a big deal. And it's like, even if we're playing a camp.
Has he cut out again?
Uh-oh. As I looked at the comment here from Clark, I'm using aggressive persuasion to get a liquid CPU cooler to fit into my desktop case. Dremels are very nice.
Yeah, I love Dremels. What's your musty drink, Dwayne? Did you say you came prepared?
That's precision.
That's the part I've been waiting to hear. What's your musty drink, Dwayne?
Oh, I'm drinking tea at the moment, but I'm still tipping away at another bottle of Teeling's whiskey, so I do have a musty drink.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
You're prepared, yeah. There you go.
He's got his liquid fortification. His liquid vitamin C.
Yeah,
right. What have you been up to, Palmer?
I had some Jameson earlier tonight, actually.
There you go. I thought you were going to have a rum and Coke.
Hey.
It must be a delay tonight.
I think so. I think poor Farmer
ran out of rum, so.
Well, no, I think I've heard it with everybody.
Yeah.
Like you talk, and then there's a bit of a delay tonight.
Is there?
I think so.
That's what I'm wondering.
Because you guys haven't started drinking yet, and there's still that much of a delay. Anyway, I actually came prepared with.
I wonder if my connection isn't the best.
My old show and tell. It's story time.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to leave and come back in.
Because I can't. Oh, look at that.
Uh-oh.
That just happened.
He's the talking eye.
Looks like your camera was unplugged, it says.
You're now a talking eyeball.
I don't know what you're talking about. Cable. Well, let me just change camera back. Because I didn't. I have had this problem in the past with this camera being screwy on StreamYard. And so when that happens, bad things happen. And so I may just have to come back in.
Uh-oh. Everybody's leaving us. It's just the two of us. All right. Dan's back.
Just the two of us.
Just the
We
two.
can make it if we
I'm
try.
gonna try because mine was the sound.
Put Dwayne on top.
It's-
You guys are rotating on us.
Every time your
Close.
internet doesn't get good,
Yeah, I
the
wanted
people
to
at
be
the very
bottom.
top are the
Can't
ones with the
hear
best
power.
internet.
You
The
gotta
best
rotate.
internet
You.
connection.
See, the problem is you guys are all too heavy and you just caught pulling all the internet down. That's why you got to rotate you around.
So best internet
Can you
connection
hear
means
Parma Rusty?
you get
Yeah,
to
I
be
can.
on top. Oh, let me see if it's
Well, I'm
switched my
actually in the basement,
my
so I should-
microphone again.
Yeah.
No, I've got the right microphone on. You guys can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Sound check. Can everyone hear me?
I know I can't hear you.
I don't know. Okay.
No,
I,
it's
I
just-
can't hear you.
I can't hear him on the screen. This is hilarious. All right, hold on.
Really? But Rusty can. That's kind of weird.
It's cool. I can hear him now. I can hear him now.
Okay. I think he's just messing with me. Like I think he's just trying to get me back for
I
something.
can hear you too.
Oh, you're talking too much.
Psychological warfare.
It's like, oh, I had him muted. I didn't want to have to listen to him.
What did you
know?
say? From the sea. I'll give you from the sea.
Mute you. All
Huh?
right.
All right.
That's good. There you go.
All right. I guess you
Solo.
can see a little bit better. So I'm working on these two guys right now. These are bestigors for
Yeah, I can't hear. There.
Okay. And Rusty, tell me if you can hear me, okay? Can you not hear me? No?
I
All
can
right,
hear you.
now
That's all that matters. That's all that matters.
Okay. Something is really wrong tonight. Anyway,
We're
this is the
discombobulated.
this is the Mordheim
You're
minis.
right. It's
And one is Nurgle and one's meant to be Korn. That's kind of the way I decided to do them as bestigors.
I thought
still-
they were Star Wars figures.
And still yeah, the prequels.
Looks like Guido.
Yeah, exactly. There's still kind of rudimentary base paints on these, but this is what I
There's
want.
more.
I've been working on this.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Papa Nurgle 3D print.
that's
Grant,
bigger than I thought.
You
Yeah,
still
like-
got to fill him
Good
in.
lord.
yeah. He's. I do have to fill in. There's some seams like right here. Like there's a couple seams because this was in 4 pieces. You can see it right there.
Now, you can
I'm
get
gonna-
that in one piece, right? Print it as one, right?
Well, actually, this one comes as a split. It doesn't come as one. So it must have been put up there by somebody that had the same printer as mine because it fits mine perfectly in 4 pieces. But I can putty this up and it'll be no
Yeah.
problem. But really, it's really fabulous. I mean, like, I'm really happy with it. I think it's going to look awesome. Because I'm doing a Nurgle sort of Daemon and Chaos Warrior army to then have my Beastmen join at times. Like I'm kind of just working on that stuff because I showed on the previous ones, on the previous show and on my YouTube channel, I showed these guys. You know, like
Yeah.
my Chaos Warriors that are in like a Nurgle paint job.
Yeah.
So
But
those
Palmer, just remember, don't go full Nurgle.
never go full Nurgle. Never do more than half demon.
Never go full.
I actually made I printed up some bases for I printed up some bases because I do so much Warhammer Fantasy and historical as compared to 40K that I have no 25mm bases. And so I printed these up and then I'm gonna do my Banshees, the old metal Banshees. Put them on those. That's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. And as you guys know, I'm gearing up for World War II. And I know we're not doing a World War II show tonight to talk. Maybe another time when Dan's on, we could do that. Look at my eyes when I wear this thing. It's like I just went to one of the oh gosh, I didn't want to say anything like not politically correct. Anyways, my eyes were like twice the size of my head looking through those things. So I'm planning on doing a bit of World War II. Like I'm really gearing up for that. And I'm really getting excited about it. So I'm thinking about it a lot. Not Dan. Dwayne had said, about like you need to be interested in, have a good community, and then it's like really easy from there. I have a good group of friends that I'm playing Warhammer Fantasy Battles with, and that's really helped. But it is a core group, and we're kind of like play in each other's houses and stuff. But I've been down to the hobby shop, and that's where they were doing some of the World War II as well. But I think, speaking to Dan and Dwayne's point, like, I think we are going to try the old world. I was really hesitant towards it. I think we're going to follow the rules. And if it seems to still be interesting because they released new articles, and what they're doing with Magic and what they're doing with some stuff is kind of interesting, because it could end up on the tables at the hobby shop and it is Warhammer Fantasy Battles.
Yep.
I think, at least for me, I feel it's worth getting involved to be able to play that style of game and promote it, like support it and play with other folks. And so I could easily just play 6th edition and not actually play any of this, and I'd be totally fine because I love 6th edition. But I think because they're bringing it back, right, and people are going to be playing it, and I have the miniatures, we're going to give it a shot. And so with that, I could see myself getting more involved in the way Dwayne's talking about, because it's something like I'm interested in. I'm not much of a tournament person, as well. I'd probably be terrified to go to a tournament, to be honest, because I wouldn't even know how to behave. I would feel like I don't know the rules well enough. I would always feel like that probably. But in any case, I would still probably do it. So that's kind of it for me. I'm really zealous for the hobby right now again, and which is great. It's kind of been coming on for a couple of months, and I've been really excited. I'm drinking. Too bad Chris has walked out because he'd know this place. But this is Fernie Brewing Company, so it's BC where he's from. The Fernie Brewing Company, and this is the Hazy Pale Ale Headwall. So I'm having a beer, and it's kind of the same color as my shirt tonight. I'm like Mr. Orange. Vector. Oh yeah.
You're playing the Dutch team today.
Halloween.
Curse you, teeny tiny toilet. Anyway,
that's a big head on that.
I know. Look at that. This for whatever reason they all have been like.
So everything's matching. You got a big white head with.
Jeez.
Don't make him laugh while he's drinking. Can you get to the liquids part?
I did. I forced it down. I didn't get much of a mustache. I think that's what threw you off. Even doing this, I can't get a mustache.
It looks hazy. Does it got that nice citrus flavor?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's hazy. It's good.
Oh yeah.
Look at that. That's like a movie. Like a movie. That's damn good beer.
Oh, that's nice.
Anyway, you could go back to everybody, Rusty. I'm starting to feel a little put on the spot.
You're feeling isolated?
Yeah, I feel a little put on the spot.
All right, that's the way it should be. All right. I gotta say, it's now that it's 2 hours into our show, we're finally getting around to our drinks. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
All these technical difficulties are getting in the way of my addiction.
Your addiction.
Got a plastic crack addiction.
It could be worse, I guess. The aggressive persuasion worked. Sounds like you got the cooler into it.
Hey.
I got that cooler in there, and I used a hammer. Now I got all kinds of cooling vents all over my CPU.
The important question: does it still work?
Yeah, that's it.
I have
That's
to
the
grab
question.
two paints while you guys are chatting. Just 1 second.
All right. So I guess while he's off and running, I'm going to do my little update. Let's see.
What do you
been doing? A lot of
what
bolt
do you
action
got?
stuff. We been going up to Game Castle there
Bolt
in
action.
Ankeny. I don't know if you've ever been to Game Castle, have you, Dan?
Mm-hmm. I never have. No.
Never have. Yeah, it's actually I think it's a national chain of.
No, I never have.
Yeah, Yeah, so right now that's the go-to place in,
Really?
in the metro for going for bolt action stuff, because every Tuesday night they get together and they play. There's about between 2 to 6 games going on at once. So it's a fairly large group of guys, and they all play each other.
Oh,
So
cool.
there's several of us are now stepping into
Okay.
the crowd, trying to get into it. And it was interesting the other night. They were like, "Well, if you knew anything about bolt action," I'm like, well, sort
It's
of.
like
know
Jesse's
about it.
joined in the room.
Oh yeah. Speaking of which,
Wasn't it
hello. He was up there at Game Castle playing his Iron Jaws that I painted for him against steampunk dwarves. And
Those are
So-
beautiful iron jaws.
yeah, the Jesse and I are the ones that are working on. Let me expand my. Where am I? Oh, there am I? It's like solo layout. Okay, you can see behind us. You can see the bolt action stuff right there.
Yeah.
Lined up. We got right now. We're currently working on the Japanese army. We bought 2 infantry boxes and a starter box of them, and I think we might have enough to make 5 squads. So, jeez, it's like a box of 30 will make 2 squads. That's it. It's like, and there's no leftovers, and you still needing more.
Well,
Just
if you make them, yeah, if you make them
full size. Yeah, if you're playing big game, it's like a 2,000 point game, then you're really filling
Yeah.
them out. But most of these guys playing like 750 to 1,000 point games, so yeah, you're going smaller squad size. But the right now we're planning on doing get those guys together, and then I think he said he's gonna. Are you gonna prime them in the Corax white so you can do the contrast paint style? I think that's what we're going to do with those guys. And speaking of contrast stuff, it was like these guys right here. I just put them up on a video that went up the other day. These are 3D printed models that I did on my little printer, and I basically painted them in about 2 hours, less than 2 hours, using contrast style. So it is a way to do it. So it goes pretty quickly.
Yeah, I got to get on that bandwagon, I think.
So I'm seriously thinking of. I got another box of those 30 Siberian troops. I'm going to get them put together, and I'll probably just do the same thing again, and because it went really fast. And I don't really care too much. I don't have to have them looking really spectacular. I just want them done, because a lot of the Soviet stuff that I painted was back in the 90s when I didn't do a lot of effort into them back then either. So they'll match. See, actually, these contrast ones I did look better than the ones I painted in the 90s. So it's like they need to get a little bit of action going on. Something I'm planning on working on. I'm going to be a little work on this guy tonight.
Yeah.
This is my Headless Horseman. He was supposed to be for Halloween, but I never got around to finishing him. So he's my
You
Ichabod.
started him? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a 3D print. So I'll get around to him. You can see there's some color on him. I got the horse base color, and I got his cloak done. So I got to add more base colors onto him. Keep working on it. Also on the table is BattleTech.
Whoop, whoop.
So I got there's an Oros tanks. I got 8 Oros tanks. I got 4 partisan tanks. I got a Lance 4 of Poe tanks with potential.
Boom.
And then I got a there you go. And then 3D printed a company of Pegasi tanks, hovercraft, since they die so quickly. So,
Nice.
and I got 4 more Maxims over here to also do. So I do have basically a battalion. I think, it's about a battalion's worth of vehicles that need to be cranked out before next weekend for the continuing campaign that we have, which is the campaign is House Merrick versus kind of Word of Blake offshoot kind of thing going on, where it's like technically you read the fluff. House Merrick kind of went together, because the captain commander, whatever, general, whatever, worked in conjunction with the Wobs. But this is a different faction of the House Merrick that doesn't like these guys. So war is ensuing there. And my drink tonight is Pendleton Rye, Canadian rye whiskey. 12-year-old.
There you go. Say Templeton Rye.
Well, hear that sound. Yeah, it's like I need to buy myself a bottle of Templeton Rye. Just add to the. There we go. Cheers.
Cheers.
Spicy. Well, I could grab a bottle of Melee vodka.
Oh yeah.
Hand signed by his only Mr. Aquaman. All right, let's see if you can catch. Yeah.
Where's that delay?
And you see, there's the signature of Jason Momoa on the bottle.
Yeah, but it is a wonky connection thing.
Yeah. I'm not too happy with my connection.
Dang.
Like this. Let me check something here real quick.
Once in a while it's good, and then it kind of the sound for me is all kind of in and out.
You got that what do you call it? Transformer sound going.
Robots in disguise.
All right. Okay, let's bring ourselves up quick here. Clark said the computer is a full rebuild, so everything it's been removed before removing the structural interference. The metal shavings were cleaned out, so now it's time to start assembly. And he said, "Hey, Jesse. Hello. Kortrek is a beast to try and deal with. He is the dwarf melee beast." Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah, it's like Xandri Dust would work. That's what I used as my base was Xandri Dust for the base color for my Soviets. So I think Xandri Dust would probably work fairly well, or something else like with the Americans. You might want to like a kind of a greenish something. Like a Nurgle's color. What the heck's the name?
There's a drab that I use because I paint blood axes. I try and do various military camos. When I'm trying to remember there's like a Castellan green, I think, and then there's also Death Core drab, I think, is another one.
It's like
Castellan
green is what I use for the helmets on these guys.
I think it's Death Core drab as well as what I use.
Yeah, I need to look at the paint lineup and see what the lighter green color is. Would work pretty decently for the like the American uniform before you start adding some stuff to it. I suppose Jesse would know. You could put it down below. I charged out. He charged a unit of pigs and just wiped them out. Ooh. That's pretty nasty if he can wipe out a unit of pigs with by himself. Yeah. All right. So we got some topics tonight. I kind of alluded to it. I wanted to just bring up as a topic of we got 3 topics. The first one, speed and contrast painting, is worth a try. And last week I had not got, or the last time 2 weeks ago, Palmer, you were doing the speed painting thing, and I wanted to try it out and see how it would work again, just using it for my historicals. And yes, it does work fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they came out excellent. Excellent.
yeah, they did a good job with them. It's like it goes pretty quickly. It's like once you get the base color down, because I did with mine was I just took the Xandri dust and painted everything with Xandri dust, and then I just started using the all my contrast paints I have here, and it's like, wow, this is going quick.
I didn't know you had them.
Yeah, it's like I got all kinds of stuff here, the technical stuff. It's like I bought a bunch of it to do some painting with some undead stuff a couple of years ago, and it's like I have some of it here. Just like shake it up, but
Cool.
like night haunt, and there's hex wraith flame. There's a bunch of the stuff here, and Jesse, he bought a whole bunch of it so he could do his Americans. So hey Jess, if you're still in here, put down below all the different colors that you need to paint the Americans as contrast painting. That would be helpful. So there's that. If anybody wants to add anything else to the contrast painting thing, or we can move on to the next topic.
That was just, you were just adding on like that it worked out well for you. I honestly, we had such a long show on the last show, 3.5 hours, that I don't remember what I've said on my own YouTube videos and what I've said on the show. On the last show. I like them, and I'll be honest. There's some things about, whether it be contrast or whether it just be using traditional methods, but using some glazes and washes, like Rusty, you've done. There's some vibrance that you can get with that technique.
Yeah,
that is really nice, and like I'm tempted to do a blend of both for this big greater demon of Nurgle, and I think that not only is it fast, but if practiced, like, because I'm not good with it at this point, like really good with it, but I think if practiced, you can use speed painting at almost like a I don't know, professional level, what do you want to call it, but a top tier painting level. Like I've seen some people undercoat with different methods before doing the speed paint, using multiple speed paints layered over each other, and like painting really high quality miniatures. Now granted, that's not what they're marketed for. I mean, like they're marketed, initially just like Army Dip, like just to be able to paint something quickly. But for those that sort of kind of poo-poo the speed painting because it's not traditional painting, and thinking that like the quality is a sacrifice that you're making like right up front. That might be true to some level, like when initially doing it. But I actually think there are folks that paint amazing with those paints.
Yeah, I agree. It's that because I've done this before with other models, just using the wash techniques that they have with their GW washes, and it's basically the same thing. Is that it works really good, and if you wanted to get some good techniques down really quickly, it's like it works fine. Now you're working on some Nurgle stuff, and I worked doing some Nurgle painting before. You're in your second beer already?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
All right. I just thought you were open up.
No. Oh man, no.
Like,
I'm having to pace myself this time. The last show I went way too quick over those 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like one thing I learned with like using the Nurgle stuff is that I was doing this. Where is it? I was using P3 paint. If I can find it, where'd it go? There we go.
You still get P3 paint these days, or is that stopped?
You can get it. You have to order it around here. Most of that stuff you just got to order it online. Hey Jesse, the question is, what are the different washes that you're going to use, the contrast paints that you're going to use on the Americans? If you hear this, go ahead and write them down into the chat, and then I'll put them up. It was Trader Green. I was painting my Nurgle stuff. I was using like Trader Green as my base coat, and I was going over it and mixing it with a little bit of Thrall Flesh over top of that. And then I was using the washes, all the different colored washes, and I was getting like bruised flesh looks and rotting flesh and all that kind of stuff. Just adding up to it really quickly. It was looking really good. And all I did was just add one base coat with a little bit of brushing over top of it and then using the washes. And it was like, I didn't have to do a lot of work on them, and they looked good. So it's like, I was like looking at that big unclean one that you got, the big spud. And I was thinking that'd be the route I'd go, is just get something that into that, and then just start using the contrast and stuff over and just paint them that way. And
I was kind of thinking of doing some undercoating. I saw some people do like a bloodthirster. I saw a guy do a bloodthirster where he undercoated it like a really dark red instead of black when doing the slap chop method.
Yeah.
For those of you guys, are you guys both familiar with the slap chop method? Have you guys heard about that? It's pretty it's new to me, but like I think it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it's been around long.
I tried it and it worked really well on my spawn that I did, but I did notice that it created a very striking old school dry brush look.
Yeah,
bright colors, but I didn't really always want that look, even though I liked it. And I was watching this guy that did a bloodthirster, and there were two things that really struck me with how he did his speed painting and his quote unquote slap chop, is that he instead of doing it black, doing a gray and then a white on top as like a basic slap chop to then undercoat for then paints, he used a dark red for the bloodthirster. So right off the bat, and then he would use probably like other reds with ivory, not like striking white, and soften up the red on the top layer, not just like a really striking. And he did these like gradual reds, and then he kind of did his speed painting stuff over it, and it just sort of made it pop, but also had a lot more transitions and gradations than just a striking gray, black, white slap chop. I was really impressed with it. And then also he used makeup brushes, for his dry brushing. And he actually, even with his dry brushing, he had this whole technique down as to how he was using these makeup brushes and not getting too much paint on. And it was really like, I can't dry brush the way this guy does. Like, it was really took a lot of practice. I could tell, like doing it the way he did. In any case, it's got me thinking a bit with the Nurgle or maybe the Greater Demon of doing some dark green, because I'm going to go for a green, I think, in the end. I was really thinking about doing something different, but I decided I'm going to go with green, and I'm going to do like a dark green, bring it up on top, with some light, like really light green, like almost whitish, and then some midtones, and then I'll do some speed paints to actually change it all.
The pallid witch flesh would be that kind of that. It's not quite white, but it's got kind of a bone to it. So it's kind of a fleshy look to it, and that goes really good if you're mixing over top of it. Yeah. And one of the things that they're talking about is like it's not really a dry brush; it's more of a wet brush that you're doing over top of it, and that allows you to blend the colors instead of just going over top of it. Like so that's the whole technique there. That's been around forever and a day.
Sure. No, I've heard of that.
It's like I find it interesting with the people are like, oh, we got this new technique called slap chop. I'm like, well, that's just wet brushing. It's been around since forever.
And there are people that are, I don't know, there are people that are talking about from the art community.
Yeah.
How this technique was called some Italian name or European name, and like, you know, like talking about that from like a level of outside of the miniature painting hobby. And I'm kind of with other people on this, and that like I can't even remember the name. Most people can't remember the name that people use, but in the miniature hobby, the slap chop is just a popularization of like it's
Another
a new,
tech.
it's a push
Branding.
to do things a certain way, very specifically. All of the techniques have to some degree been around before, but nobody's really known to do it all in combination in the same way with those kinds of paints, and so they call it slap chop, and that kind of makes sense, you know.
Yeah, it's like, it's just pretty much, to me, it's like you're just
Okay.
renaming something that's been around for a while, but it's cool. You know,
Yeah, pretty much rebranding of two techniques
yeah,
that have already existed and putting them together. But like it serves its purpose. Like it came from Wargamers. It's not like a company came along and were like slap chop, yeah, because it's like it's a meme. Even the name's a meme. It's based off of like one of those TV advert, like
Yeah.
vegetable choppers. Like, come on, it's a total like meme joke terminology, but it works and people are loving
Yeah.
it. And it's like I find the whole contrast thing very interesting because it's like, because I've been in the hobby for so long, it's, you know, I'm used to the usual base coat, and then like do shades, but it's even like washes or whatever, and then come back in with a light dry brush on top. But even thinking about like when I started, when I was a young fella, like there were no washes. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, there was
Oh,
nothing
yeah.
like that.
there was
Inks.
washes. Yeah, there was inks. Oh Jesus Christ, that reminds me.
Inks that made whatever you put on it was like so potent. Like whatever you put them on just
Oh
turned
my.
it to that. And then they were shiny, like shiny, and whatever you put them on were like really potent.
That
I remember
was
the
not-
first
not a
time you
good
started
thing.
using those inks. He was like, okay, I'll put what I was working on. Let's set it for a week so it dries, and then come back to it in a week. And I was like, oh my god, it's the first time I remember using it, and it's like I come back the next day not thinking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just spread all this ink all over everywhere now.
Yeah, and if you spilt a bottle of that, you know, it was like spilling a thing of India ink. I mean,
Yeah, it was
basically no coming back.
yeah,
You didn't want blue furniture? Well, you have no choice now, bud.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just interesting seeing how like the scene has evolved with different materials, like with, you know, even with foundation paints and then washes, and then we've got like our contrast paints, which are, you know, slightly different again, but just how people are learning. Like the thing I just don't like about the whole contrast thing is how it's being advertised. As you know, initially it was all like, oh, it's beginner friendly, you know, you only need to put one coat on, but it's not really a beginner friendly product. So there's two things. There's the beginner friendly product thing. It's like you need very good brush control to get
yes,
good results. That is not beginner friendly product then, because you need to have the good brush control. Now, some people naturally have very good brush control. Others, like myself, have to build it up after years and years of failing. And I'm barely painting, but years and years of failing. You'll get it eventually. So I don't see it as a beginner product. And then the other thing I find interesting is the reaction to it that the established community has. Do you remember when there was airbrushes became kind of cheap and available and became
oh
more
yeah,
popular with the hobby? There was resistance then. There's always resistance to change, no matter what it is. So when a new product comes out or a new technique comes out, there's always resistance. And it's always funny to see the same reaction. Oh, that's cheating. You airbrush, that's cheating. You know what I mean? That doesn't count. You know, and there's this concept of, you know, with contrast as well. It's not real painting. You know what I mean? That's cheating. It's just, it's funny. Like 40 years from now, we'll be saying the same reactions over whatever products they bring out. It'll just be like, oh, this isn't true miniature painting back in my day. You know, we had to make the brushes ourselves, and you know,
in 40 years from now, you just hit the print button and it comes out in colors.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean that's in its those color printers are in their infancy now. Like they can kind of already do that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
it's just funny. I just think it wasn't branded correctly, but it is. There's resistance to it initially, but people are catching on. Like Palmer said, it's just another tool in the box. You know what I mean? So experiment with it.
And you know, as much as there is an aspect to this that like the core concepts have been around all the time, the formulations of the speed paints, in my opinion, there is a little bit new under the sun. And what I mean by that, in my opinion, is that as much as there were glazes and washes before, in my personal experience, I didn't find the washes and the glazes to operate exactly like a speed paint. I actually find that the speed paint covers better than an ink and goes into the crevices better than a glaze, which is really what, like, an ink isn't really meant to cover really well, like, and a glaze isn't meant to really go deep into the coat, and it's supposed to actually have an even coat. I find that the formulations that they use and the proportion that I've, in my experience with the Army Painter Series 1, which isn't supposed to be as good, but it's working fine for me. But I'm finding that they create a really nice filter and covering and still go in to the crevices. And as much as Dwayne said, like, some of the colors I've already noticed should get a second coat to get to my liking. But I find they're great, like, so far. Like, I really like them, and I see them as an excellent addition.
Yeah, I agree. It's that it's just like you said, it's another tool in the toolbox that you can use to get the job done. If I wanted to sit down and paint the traditional way and make my guys look really, really good, I would sit down and paint them, and you know. But right now, it's like I got so many things. I just sent out a commission today that I finished off, and I'm working on a commission right now. Is that I got to get done before next weekend, so I'm in a hurry. And there's times when you just look at something and like, well, you know what? I'm not going to be spending all my time blowing, really deep and elaborate paint jobs. You know, sometimes you just got to get the job done as quick as possible with the best tools you got in the box.
Mm-hmm.
And if it comes out looking just as good, and if I can do it a lot quicker, that's what I'm going to do.
Well, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. And the old thing is, in business, time is money. It's like if I can crank out a project in a week instead of 2 weeks, if I can get 4 projects done in a month's time, why wouldn't I do it that way? You know.
The Wolf on Warhammer Street.
Yeah, there we go. Warhammer. All right, we got some questions. Ask Jesse some questions. It looks like he did get back to me. All right. So what he did was he primed everything in contrast wraithbone. There we go. That was the word thing I was trying to remember what it was. And it allows you to as your base. You know, so you can start adding all those contrasts to it. It's very spooky going on with Mr. Dan. What is Dan up to? He moved. Oh, he's upstairs.
Trying to get better internet.
Yeah, I've got issues with my internet connection.
He's probably sitting on top of the router now.
He's up at the
Get
desk.
closer to the modem. Some nights.
Yeah.
So pretty much same thing. It's like I just, instead of mine, I primed my stuff in black, and I put the Xandri dust over top of that. And then it said the paints are the following. He had Skeleton Horde, Plague Bear Flesh, Gilliman Flesh, Militarum Green. I think that's the one I was thinking of, the Militarum Green. That gives you that kind of that more of a, what the heck is the color I'm trying to look for? It's coming out kind of lime green, but. And then Wildwood. Then you had Gore Grunta Fur, which I think I got some Gore Grunta Fur right here. Yeah, that's more of a. And we've got the skag brown. And then let's see what else we had. Snakebite leather, Castellan green, which is your dark green. And the shade is the earth one after. So the I think what they did was they put all the base colors on everywhere you wanted, and they would put another was it another wash, I think it was, over top of that, which was a like the Seraphim Sepia or something like that to give it kind of a brownish reddish tint to it, something like that. And then he also used a black Templar, because sometimes you had to have some black areas, and that's all the paints. All right. All righty. So, thanks, Jesse. So, yeah, there's lots of ways to skin the cat. Meow.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's here as you said that?
Crash.
Oh,
Oh. Oh, you know what he
Having trouble
wants.
with the technology tonight.
yeah, it's well, there's been all kind, and they were talking about in Iowa alone. It's like the internet's been bad this last week or so, and it's because of
Well, every once in a while, for some reason, in the basement, or that's where my hobby room is, but up here, it's not that far apart, but up on the main floor is where our modem is and our Wi-Fi. And normally, like down there, I can get, I get signal, but it's not amazing. And, I'm always down there when we do, when I've been on the show, but for some reason tonight I could tell it was just not, it kept kind of cutting in and out. But now that I'm up here, it's just like totally fine. So
you're hardwired in now,
anyway.
right? Are you
The
hooked up
question
to your desktop now?
Yeah, I'm on the same computer. I just moved closer to my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That's all.
Joanne, you
You
still
need
having
a
trouble
booster? No,
hearing?
I can hear him perfectly, and his
Okay.
timing's brilliant. Like, maybe you
Okay.
just needed like a Wi-Fi
Yeah,
booster then
same.
in your other place.
Yeah, I must. Normally, I can get by. I don't know why it would vary so much, because nothing changes in the house. But anywho, yeah. But I was excited to do some painting, but I got a bunch done. But I couldn't hear much of what you guys were saying, and I couldn't participate. So it was time to come back up. But anyway, yeah, I heard you talking about the speed paints or contrast paints, and I own one. I own one contrast paint that I bought this late summer with some of the money I'd won at that bolt action tournament I played at in June, and I haven't
Mhm.
cracked it open yet, just because I wanted
You remember what kind it
to
was?
try it. It was a brown, like vomit or
Vomit brown.
some sort of disgusting, some sort of a word brown, or it's not even that simple anymore. Usually it's some, like, you need to know like the lore of like 40K to know the name of the paint. But anyway, that being said, it just looked like a good kind of medium brown, because I watched a lot of YouTube through the summer, like I typically do, and I saw even some older and seasoned painters that just kind of do the historical people, even, that are just doing the channel for just because they like to share their hobby. I mean, they're not promoting anything, but they're starting to find some advantages to them, using it as a tool. Whether it's one guy uses them for painting his horses, or even just, I thought a brown was a nice generic color. I could try it on some horses. I could try, because I've got some AWI horses to do yet, and any kind of clothing stuff, whether it's Civil War or World War II or whatever. So I thought I could kind of mess with it, but I find it kind of, I guess for me, the whole contrast speed paint thing is cool, and I'm definitely not opposed to it. And I don't really understand the concept that it's like cheating or shortcut or not real painting or anything. I
It's
don't
just
quite
resisting
get
the
that.
change. That's all it is. It's just resistance to change. It's the usual,
Yeah.
you know
That's
yourself.
all it. That's all it is. And so I don't prescribe to that at all. But my biggest holdback is two things. Comes down to me. For one, I've got like this, huge that I've accumulate a rack of paints I've accumulated through the years of a variety of brands. And it's like, okay, when I know what this will give me, and I know what to use for a highlight. And I've, over time invested quite a bit of money in the paints. And it's now, boy, just like a contrast paint, GWs tend to be kind of high, but what are they, like $6, $7, $8 or something? And man, I could spend a couple $100 just getting to kind of a basic, just to do some decent things. And you're kind of guessing at what color you want. And then, like you guys mentioned, what you base coat in can really change, which is cool. That's one of the cool things about it. And then you can highlight up from them. And, I'd use it as a tool, but, I'm always like, I don't know if I want to, spend $100 or $200, even over a couple months picking the paint. And then what do you do? Do you go down the Army Painter's speed paints, 1 or 2, and then or Vallejo's got their, whatever they call them, and then GW's got theirs. And then the other thing is too, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was ready to do contrast just because from an artistic level, most of the folks that are like pretty established, like YouTube painters that use use speed painting contrast have sort of said that, like, even though there's a lot of variability from paint to paint, which you can't judge it just on your one brown, like what the whole thing's going to be like, because there's a lot of variability, from paint to paint. I was ready to go all in on Citadel contrast because from a purist perspective, it seemed as if it was the way to go. I went down there, and the main paint I needed at my store, which has most paints, like for Nurgle, they didn't have. And then like a second one I needed, they didn't have. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to grab the Army Painter. I said, you know what? In this case, I'm not going because I wanted to get the Army Painter from my local game store. They didn't have it set. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go to Amazon because they actually I'm just going to get the actual, I usually do a lot of shopping at my local game store, but I knew that I could get a good deal on Army Painter speed paints, get a whole introductory set for a good price. And I'll just have it delivered to my doorstep with all the paints that I want for this. And I went with it, and I'm really happy I did. I'm not saying they're better than the contrast ones, and from what I've heard, a lot of people do like those. But I'm probably going to stick with them. I like them, the Army Painter speed paints.
Well, and you got the Army Painter the version 1 or whatever they call it, right?
Yeah, the one that
supposedly reactivates or whatever.
That's right, exactly. I've had no problems with reactivation, but I also haven't been trying to paint one over the other anytime soon, but I probably will go to the second ones once I finish this set. But I initially felt really jaded that I ordered the Army Painter, and I was like, you stupid idiot, you got the first one, I didn't realize, I didn't look at the front of the boxes, and I didn't realize, no wonder it was a good deal, but I started using them optimistically, and I was like, these are awesome. I really liked them.
Well, some people actually, and maybe they're just trying to justify they bought the whole mega set or whatever of Speed Paint 1, but some people seem to actually prefer them because it's like anything, whether you like heavy pigmented paints or thinner paints or it depends how you're using it. And so maybe it does what they want it to do.
Some people like to blend them.
Yeah.
And be able to blend at the edges. And they like that effect.
Right.
Yeah, it works good.
Well, see, and the other problem is, like I said, I've watched some YouTube videos, and they'll some of those major mega channels will compare, like Army Painter in particular, Army Painter and Citadel, and some of them throw some Vallejo in there too. But here's their greens, and then they'll paint the same miniature, and it's like, oh, I really like that green of whatever it is of Citadel, but boy, that that red on the army painter. Now that I really like for the red, and so it's like I don't think I could buy like a set.
Yeah.
And so then it's sort of analysis paralysis, and I guess I'm not unhappy with what I do, but like I said, this summer I did pick that one up at the hobby shop that I was at, and thought I want to start messing with it some and just kind of see, because I don't see myself just going down the route of just, okay, I'm gonna just, one coat of speed paint or whatever on, and whack it out quick, and I would still do some highlighting and, maybe even a wash or, or whatever. But I think it would probably speed up my painting. But is that really a goal that I have? It really isn't, to be honest. I mean, I enjoy the painting process. But I would like to try some new tools. I mean, I know when I discovered inks and washes and higher quality acrylic paints through the years, that it really changes what you can do. So yeah, I know at first I was like, oh yeah, that's just gimmicky, and that's
the
for
way
beginners.
I was too. That's the way I was too.
But
Yep.
I see enough people, doing and what they're achieving and using it maybe just for like I said, like the horses, or like, just for the backpacks on something. They get some really cool effects. It's another tool, but boy, then it's sort of like, even if you're a mechanic, can I just have that's like, now we got to add metric wrenches, or, it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, now it's just like, I mean, it's great to have 4 sizes of pulley pullers, but
Uh-oh.
You okay, Dan?
Pulley pullers got him.
The pulley pullers.
Yes. Yeah.
they're
The horse buggy
Oh.
whippers and the pulley pullers got him.
there, I'm back.
You're back? Okay. Well, think of it this way, though. Like, I completely see your point. But then ask yourself, too, like, look at your unfinished pile of miniatures and look at your entire collection of everything you have. And ask yourself if having, like, a box of 20 paints that you only pull out for certain projects once in a while sitting on the shelf is really going to break the
No,
the system.
you're absolutely
You know what I
you're
mean?
right.
Because I think that
Yes.
way too. Like, I think that way too. And I don't care so much about, I used to stress about the ranges I have. Like, I bought these coat de arms, paints.
Yep, I have
Because
some too.
Yeah, I got their whole set like a few years ago. And like, I was a GW guy, and then I was a Vallejo, and I'd still kind of consider myself a Vallejo person when it came to my paints, like the model color specifically. But then I got the coat de arms to go with some of my old hammer stuff.
Old hammer, yeah.
And I use it all, and I have some pots that go dry on all 3 lines, that I don't use as much. But I don't really stress about it too much anymore. It's just, I know what you're saying. Like,
Yeah,
we're all kind of quirky about like what we want to have.
Yeah. Well, because I have paints I bought, I chose to buy individual paints that some of them I have never used yet, and I've had them for quite a few years. And I'm definitely not married to any one range, because it's just interesting. Down in my hobby room, I always have the colors sitting in a separate spot that I'm, the ones that I'm using, like for when I got done painting my British last regiment, and they had the green cuffs. So I had, everything every single paint that I used for base coat, highlight, mixing was all up on this table. And so that way I don't get confused if I don't come back for a while or whatever. And when I look at that, I mean, there's like 20 paints sitting there probably, and there's at least 3 manufacturers. I think there's 4, so it's like I use Vallejo regularly. I use some Citadel, use Coat d'Arms, and believe it or not, I'm probably the only guy on the internet, or probably on the planet, I still use a lot of the raw Partha paints.
Oh wow! That's
But I still
impressive.
have, and actually a majority of my British are painted with Raw Partha paints that I bought back around 2000, 2001, right before they went out of business. I was ordering them directly from where they were in Cincinnati, Ohio. And yeah, I didn't have a hobby shop local, so it was anything I bought had to be ordered. Except I could get Citadel paints down in Omaha, but that was like an hour and some away, and I just never, you wouldn't drive just down there to buy like 5 paints, So, but yeah, and I get really people talk how junky they are, and I don't know, they're not the worst. They're not. They're better than the Apple Barrel craft paints, which I've seen people get amazing results with those as well, to be honest. So anyway, so I'm not definitely not. I don't go down one road ever, but
You have some logical reasons as to why you haven't just jumped right into the full burst into it. And there's a reason why I'm painting these Mordheim ones in my regular paints and not the speed paints, and it's because this is what I know, and then partly,
yes, right.
And I don't always want the look that I'm achieving so far. Like, I don't want my Mordheim guys to look like this. Like,
Right.
like I don't. These are my KS guys that I did with the speed paints, and they're a lot brighter, and they have, in some ways, like they're really nice with the Goblin Green bases bright like this. They almost look like an older army, even though that's the actual. What is the word that I'm looking for? It's the illogical or the ironic thing is that.
Hey guys, I'll be right back.
Okay.
My wife needs to talk to me real quick.
Okay. The ironic thing is that after using speed paints, which is like supposedly, we know it's not a new thing, but it's supposedly like a newer way to paint. Putting them these guys with the speed paint on a Goblin Green base makes them look more Old Hammer than doing it this way. To me, like they're really bright on this Goblin Green base, and they look older. Like they look older. Like they look like an older style, bright kind of paint job, and I like it. Like it looks good, but it's not what I would want these Beastmen painted. Like and even saying that, I've seen people paint more like natural tones as opposed to this yellow armor, like yellowy green armor. I've seen people paint natural tones with the speed paints, and they look really good. Like a Beastman army could be painted with speed paints and look good too. It's just not what I know like as much.
Right. Thing that looks tricky to me, this is like, I don't know why, you'll probably laugh because this is a weird sticking point. When I watch people use the contrast paints or those kind of paints, you're usually painting over a very light undercoat, obviously. And it seems like, how do you not get the color? Because they're so fluid of looking paints. It looks like you're painting with like washes, like Agrax or something, you know what I mean? And I know what that consistency is. And I'm like, how do they keep it from going where they don't want? And so then if it does, so then what do you do? Like you get a little of the blue coat onto where the white should be, or the yellow cuff, then what do you do with that?
So how do you
fix that if you're not because I see the guys that do it and they're just painting away and they are like precise. I mean, I don't ever see them make a mistake and they don't show me fixing it. And so I'm like, how do you fix that?
Okay, so as somebody that is more of a traditional painter, in my painting that's just new to contrast, I will tell you the way I did it was, because I did make some brushstroke mistakes on those KS Warriors, so if I had like, let's say yellow, and then I got like a metallic, which I painted second onto that yellow, and now I've got a mistake. I recovered them where I painted the metal with a gray to white color to cover the metal, and then I put the contrast again over it. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's about the only thing I could think of.
I'm flattening out whatever it is they talked about and just recreating that effect. And it worked pretty good. There might be better ways to do it than that, but that's the way I did it, and it worked fine.
I don't know.
But you're right. Like you have to be careful.
Yeah,
because that's why they sold small pots of, what is it, Wraithbone, So the primers that they had, they sold small pots specifically for that, where it was the idea being that you would retouch up the model in areas you need to clean up with the base color. This is what I mean about like when it was initially advertised. It's not a beginner friendly product
Definitely not.
because you know traditional sort of painting with the acrylics would be a lot easier going because it's like okay, paint your miniature from the
precise.
inside out, and you'll just be painting over your mistakes as you go.
But then when
you
somebody shows you, like a beginner shows you their model that they did with beginner's paints, and they say, yeah, but what about this? And you see like all this thick paint with brush strokes and stuff, you know, like they all have their challenges, right? Like all paint mediums have their challenges.
No, there's no like golden chalice or whatever. That's one fixes everything.
But I would say that the modern paints are easier to use, regardless of your skill level. Just the regular acrylic paints, they have better coverage and they flow better. But as far as a beginner, the first thing you need to learn is brush control, whether you're using contrast paints or regular acrylics, because but I just think you don't probably have natural brush control as a beginner, so you're better off starting with regular acrylics. That's my opinion. But they get nice results. I mean, because really, basically, why don't you just teach a beginner to use regular acrylic paints and then buy a couple of washes, whether you like, strong tone or Agrax or Nuln Oil or whatever, and then go back in and do a highlight of the base color, right? That's very simple. You don't even have to be particularly neat, because if you use a wash, if you missed a little area or it overlapped, it blends it in nicely. It just seems to me that's an easier place to begin.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree on one point you made, and only because I think sometimes, and I'm not accusing you this is so much because you probably know this well, but I think when we say and then just do a highlight, for a beginner, a highlight is really hard. Whether it be glazing or edge highlighting, they all are actually really difficult to pull off as a beginner well. And it can be really intimidating, like to actually get a good look with highlighting. It's much easier, I think, to wash. Like washes, I think, as a technique, or even dry brushing, which is probably, even though I think dry brushing is something I could do better than I do, it's oftentimes considered to be like the basics of it, one of the easier ways to highlight. You can end up with some really bad paint jobs with really chalky looks and like all kinds of stuff if you don't do it well. And so the thing with the speed paint, though, that like a lot of the stuff I said, I think you're totally right on. Like there's some things you can do with like your traditional way of painting and get good results right off the bat, or a good foundation. But with the speed painting, I think the rationale behind it is that you can get like a recessed dark and a highlight, and then your covering of your main tone with very little effort. Like, and that's the part, like taking out, like what Dwayne was saying earlier, the brush control and the fact that you do need to be a bit careful and things like that. Like if you remove that concern, which is a real concern, the other parts like work really well with speed paint. Like it really creates a very dynamic looking miniature with very little skill. And that's where I think it's really good. By the way, I think we said hello, or at least in the chat we did, but both Mini Warmut and a Nerd's Nerd have joined the chat. I think that a Nerd's Nerd, I don't know if they've been on your channel, Rusty, but I think I saw a Nerd's Nerd in Curtis's stream that he has, the GM's Alcove, because I was in there the other day and I met some folks in there.
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah.
So, Nerd says, I almost exclusively speed paint and completely agree. Some colors can cover each other well, but most of the time it's touch up with white, then reapply. Yeah.
I mean, that's the main problem I found with like the GW ones was the inconsistency in their line. So I didn't buy the contrast paints. I traded like some old orcs I had for them, but some of them worked really well straight out of the pot. Other ones you had to use like the contrast medium to get the same sort of coverage. So like I don't know, maybe the consistency of the pigments or whatever, like the properties of the paint, the initial paint line for contrast, I found it was very hit and miss, which is weird because like
if you buy, like if you're dealing with like Farmer Dan's down there, where you're buying one contrast paint and you're trying it, that's going to give you your impression of how the whole line works. And then if you go and
Yeah,
buy
that's
another
true.
one, and you're like, oh wait a minute, this is slightly different. This pigmentation's a lot thicker. I actually need to water it down, or I need to put medium in it in order to get the type of coverage I was expecting to get.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what I find with like
That's-
the GW ones, and then their
I'd say that's a very good
price
point there.
Yeah, but their price point as well is just astronomical. The
Yeah.
army painter ones, I bought the version 1 ones. I am not happy with the fact that they reactivate. I think that was they dropped the ball big time there. In my eyes, if you're selling a paint that's going onto wargaming miniatures, and you know, under, you know, the whole speed painting is really being pushed and aimed at new people, you know, giving it to someone new, and then they're like, hey, the paint keeps running off when I'm playing with my miniatures. I'm like,
See, I don't. Is that what's happening though? Because I haven't had any
that's,
issues with that.
That's what happens with the version 1s, is they
But
reactivate.
but that's what I have, and I had no issues. And I interpreted the reactivation issue more that if you're not letting it in a very short period of time, if you're painting with another color and touching up next to it without letting it dry, you know, that it will bleed. You know, like one color
Yeah.
bleeds into the other. Not that
I've
like, you know,
I've
you have
seen
it on
that,
the
yeah.
table and the miniatures dripping onto the table, you know. I'm melting. But and I also then, of course, I let it dry and then I cover it with a primer as well. But basically, I don't know, like, kind of getting back to my other point though, because Dan didn't really have an opportunity to respond. He was just sort of like, I guess, like, do you remember when first painting? Like, and maybe for you it was probably longer ago than me, because I think you've been in the hobby longer than me. I just found, like, when doing highlighting, that initially I had to, because I didn't, if you could either cake your highlights, I never really made that mistake, but you could cake your paint one on top of the other, in which case it looked not good.
Yeah.
Or then you thin it down. And I found, like, I could just highlight forever with thin down stuff and never get anywhere. Like I'm looking at everybody's beautiful miniatures, and I went through 5 highlights, and it's like, it all looks the same, like, at the end, you know what I mean? So, like, that was another learning step. Edge highlighting, I had to have so much brush control and know where to put them that it looked horrible. Like, you know, initially, like, I was like, this just looks stupid, you know. And of course, I'm having to put filters on them, like, you know, with washes and stuff to tone them down, but it still just never looked like GWs, like, when I was doing it. And then dry brushing, I had some times where I got some good dry brushing right off the bat, but even there, I did the chalky stuff problem too. So everybody talked about the highlighting, but I found it such a hurdle during the painting, like when first learning how to paint. Like, I found, like, that to be one of the hardest parts, to have it look good. Like, did you not have any of that experience?
I didn't.
You're much better than me then.
No, I'm not
Well,
saying
how did
that.
you learn to paint though? Just a quick question, like, Palmer, how did you learn to paint? Because for me, really quickly, sorry to cut over you, Dan. For me,
go
I
ahead.
learned how to paint miniatures in a Games Workshop. So I had someone physically teach me how to paint. The very first things I were taught were thin your paints and how to dry brush. I was taught those 2 key things by someone in a store, and that worked wonders for years. So it's like how much of that, like, how much heartbreak did that save me? And by the sound of what you're saying, Palmer, it's like, it saved me a fair chunk.
Well, you know, I guess everybody has a different view on their trajectory, like, you know, as a painter, right? Like, you know, like, some people, like, I'm not saying, like my view of how I did was based on my perception and my expectations. Like, you know what I mean? Like, looking at other people and, like, what it was, and, like, seeing everything. But everybody, you know, like, we all go through, like, every one of us went through a progression, like, you know, like, over time. And how we felt about that progression is going to be based on individually, you know, like, our own sort of expectations. I did not learn in person how to paint. It would have been great to do that, but I learned from, I think, a very good source, and that is I watched a gazillion YouTube painters, like, you know, and so I think YouTube is an excellent form of teaching. However, nothing really beats personal instruction, where like somebody comes right up to you and like shows you like, oh no, do it like this. Like, you know, it's definitely going to be quicker and like more direct that way. Like I could definitely see that, but I still think my trajectory went really well with YouTube. It's just I felt like I had to go through all these stages and it took time. What did I say?
It makes me feel old. It's like, well, YouTube wasn't a thing when I first
I was
started.
gonna say,
yeah.
I didn't even have the internet when I was learning to paint.
Okay, and so the thing was this: is that I first started painting in 1989 with like Rogue Trader, and yes, then you don't want to talk about what my painting looked like. Like I was not in a GW, and like I was painting with 3 solid colors. Like, you know, like that was it. There was nothing else, you know. But when I got into the hobby again in 2012, YouTube was up and had a ton of resources.
It's a different beast.
Yeah,
absolutely
and it was great.
Different beast. Like watching that happen in the early 2000s, like that, it totally radically changed the hobby. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I was gonna say when I first started painting, I didn't even know there was this thing called Games Workshop.
Yeah, there is that.
It was like you just looked at it. It's like, okay, I see some black and white pictures, or you get these little books every once in a while you find with pictures in it, and you're like, well, I think I can use these different kind of paints and try to make them work.
Rusty, you were sitting on the floor in your suit playing Little Wars with wooden soldiers. You needed to dust yourself off. There was no such thing as a gaming table back then.
How'd you know?
You were there. I remember actually when I first started painting was in the 80s. Yeah, pretty much 80s. And my biggest thing was, which that probably helped me, I didn't know anything about highlighting or washes or
there wasn't such things as washes, but
they had the dips. You could dip in the varnish or in staining or whatever they called it. But I learned I just painted. I got to where I developed good brush control, because that's all I was trying to do was, you know, make sure it's a lot of medieval things I was painting, like for Dungeons and Dragons, and just because I like medieval, but just, you know, making sure the surcoat was didn't get onto the armor, and then, you know, just the basic stuff. So I got some brush control, and I was keeping it simple, and I thought I was nailing it because, you know, there wasn't an internet. I didn't have a hobby shop. I was getting most of my like images like from and information of companies out there from my mom had gotten me a subscription to Dragon magazine, actually, because we were into Dungeons and Dragons, and they'd have advertisements for miniatures, and you know, and you'd send away for the catalog and black and white, order a couple miniatures, wait 2 months, and I'd order some paints that way, and that's how I got started on the raw Partha paints, actually, in the early 90s there. And but then when my painting actually started to really progress was probably, I don't know if it was like 97, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there is when I got a White Dwarf subscription. I actually got down to Omaha and went to a hobby shop, and it wasn't a Games Workshop, but they had a huge Games Workshop section, and I was like, and there were people in there. It was like a Friday night. They were playing games. Would have been 5th edition. And I was like, this is mind blowing. I mean, I didn't know you could do stuff like that and build armies. And so I picked up like, I think I picked up the Citadel catalog, you know, those paperback, you know, gosh, it was like an inch thick back in like 97 or 8 or something. And that, and like a copy of White Dwarf and a couple Bretonians. And then came back like in a month, and I bought a bunch of those hex pots, you know, with the flip tops, not the screw tops, the old good ones that I still have some that work. And anyway, but long story shorter is in the White Dwarf, they had the painting articles. the heavy metal, and some of them weren't even that, but where they talked about, oh, you base coat with the bubonic brown, and then you highlight with this color. And I started to understand, and they show where they applied it. And I didn't do any washes until probably around 2015 or somewhere in there. And so then I was just learning highlighting then, and then I was old enough then also to be able to try to emulate what they were doing in White Dwarf at that point, because it wasn't quite so over the top. It was doable stuff they had in there. Granted, maybe some of the, Golden Demon Winter stuff was like way beyond my, ability, but a lot of the stuff in there, it's like, I could make it look similar to that, and so I kind of baby stepped my skills as I went, and I was never, disappointed, because I part of it was ignorance. I didn't know, but like if somebody just started now in the hobby and you go into YouTube, it would be mind blowing. It'd be like, look at all the stuff that wasn't even a thing when we started. Like you said, washes weren't even things. And of course, they got, speed paints and all the different kinds of metallic paints you can get. And then you see the results that these people are getting, and they're combining airbrushing, and they're doing zenithal highlights, or, base coats or whatever. And, so there's it was so basic back when we some of us started, that it's, I think it'd be tougher for a newbie now to feel like they're ever going to get there from here.
Well, we're spoiled for choice. If you even look at like the amount of companies that are making paints now,
Yes.
It's not as restrictive. Like even back when I would have started in the hobby back in like 97, 98. So I'm a latecomer compared to some of you, but like looking back to the late 90s, like the paints that were available, or the paints that were visible to people. So there might have been paints, but were you aware that they were around, those specific paints? Did you have to go down the alleyway, knock 3 times on the door, and the man in the green robe, will show you the P3 paints or whatever, you know what I mean? So there's a lot more choice now, but also the accessibility is massive, like, you know what I mean? Like,
so even though I started up again in 2012, and had probably more choice then than in the late 80s, when I started in the late 80s with D&D minis, the Grenader minis, which I love to this day, Julie Guthrie's sculpts, I'm going back buying them, because they're just, even by today, they're just awesome. But I was using Testors and enamel paints.
Yeah.
So like Testors enamel paints, the little square jars with the little metal caps on them, this big. That's what I started with. And like, I don't even think like, can you do anything with those besides just slap them on and make different colors? I mean, like they come out, they look like the old toy soldier colors. I mean, like they look like shellac, like color, like, and you just have like 3 different kinds, and
yeah, bright red, crayon green. I mean,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's where I'm coming from. Like that's my background. I still have I refuse to change them. I actually still have some paints with those on them, and I refuse to take them off.
No, leave them on. Leave them on as a reminder. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. Yeah,
we have a whole bunch of early BattleTech ones that were from the early era, the first 3-4 years before 90, where they were all Testors painted.
Mm-hmm.
And you just covered them with Testors paint. And it was like,
they were the most accessible paints.
Yeah, it's good to get them at Walmart, it's like,
yeah.
And then we came along the day when I found this. It's like, went into the first, and we got not the P3, but they're Poly S paints.
Oh, I had some Poly S. I could order them through the mail.
Yeah.
With my miniatures, Poly S.
And when I started finding historicals, it's like, started painting a lot of historicals, and it's like, the guy says, well, get some Poly S paints. I was like, where do you find that? And he said, go down here, go around the corner. It's like in Iowa City, it's like there's this hobby store that they sell this Poly S paint. It's like, okay. So I looked it up.
And they'd tell you too, because like if you're trying to paint military figures, they would give you the Poly S paint colors You know,
Yeah.
so like Vallejo does now, but it had the poly S numbers or that were supposed to be like for the American uniform and whatever. I
Yeah.
forgot those had that screw-on metal lid that man would
Yes.
they get on there. You had to use a bottle opener, not kidding, to get those things unscrewed.
There's a reason. Like I always have pliers sitting next to me. Sometimes you need it too. You grab it at the bottom on the other set and you go, and you get them off. But
I actually
they
still have the
worked.
pliers for that.
And it's like
next
the
to my-
moment I found those things, I was like, my whole painting just changed when it comes to hobby. You know,
Yeah.
and which is really interesting because I got an art degree, but it's like you're using
forgot that.
oils and watercolors and stuff like that. But you're putting it on paper, which is a lot
Right.
different than putting it
Yeah.
on a miniature.
Mm.
And you can't use watercolor paints or oil paints really to that extent like you can.
Yeah, because then I went from the poly S and that's when I started getting the raw Partha paints, just because I didn't have a hobby shop. I think I was just ordering them straight from raw Partha.
Yeah.
Because that's when
'Cause
I
I
was
was-
buying a bunch of Bob Ollie sculpts and I was kind of into a bunch of stuff that I actually bought. Their Battle Storm was their big battle game rules system that they came
Yeah.
out with through Raw Partha. And I was going to do that instead of Warhammer because it was so much cheaper. Because at that age I was like, oh my gosh, a box of whatever to build a unit for Warhammer was like all this, and their paints were this much, and I'm like, man, I can get these raw Partha paints that are twice as big for less money, and I could buy these goblins and medieval knights from raw Partha. It was going to be like half price to do that, and they had their own rules, and so I actually started down that road, and then about that time was when raw Partha went out of business. Then,
Yeah. You see, I mostly use speed paints and get that mini ready for the table. If the paint job is good enough for me, then it's good enough for the table. Crap, I'm a solo player anyway. Ha.
yeah, but mini Warmut stuff looks good. That's better than just tabletop. That's good stuff.
Vallejo stuff.
Matthew Merrick said that use Vallejo Express as you're really putting out some good product with that.
Yeah, I wonder. I haven't talked to anybody that's used those. I don't know, anything. How do they compare? What makes them better or not as?
There's so
better?
many now. There's
I
so
know
many.
it-
It's like, does any one person need to buy all of the lines, if not to just compare them? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I
I've
know.
started using AK paints, and I thought
AKA,
it was
right?
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
People
thought it was
love
on
those
like
paints.
this well-kept
Yeah.
secret or something like that, and then I started seeing all the videos on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, I just look like I'm jumping on the bandwagon now. But it's only the reason why I buy them is because I go into the local model shop on my breaks from work, and I go and I talk to the lads, and the paint line that they have is like they have traditional like Humbrals and stuff like that, and then they have this AK line. And I was like, oh, I'll try it and I'll see what it's like. And I was loving it. And I thought it was like a well kept secret, but apparently not. But yeah, I'm enjoying them. I like them. I like that they're very matte as well. But
Yeah.
I get good colors, and there's different ones. Like you've got like your intense colors and just the standard acrylics, and it's like it's gonna be the way you're gonna buy paint. Like if you've got a local shop and you have accessibility, you're gonna try what you can get your hands on. Like it's pretty easy for me to get a hold of Vallejo, Army Painter, or AK paints or GW paints because there's all stores in the city that were within walking distance on my lunch breaks. So the accessibility really helps in that regard as well. But yeah, like I haven't tried the Vallejo Express paints, but that's because I already have contrast. I already have the Army Painter ones. It's like, do I really need to buy another brand of speed paint just to try out? It's like, not really,
I know. And then you get onto a paint and then they change it. I mean, like, well, of course, Games Workshop's a prime example of that. I remember when they went away from the old hex pots, and then didn't they do the screw top hex pot? But then it changed all the names. Like you couldn't you know, but there were conversion charts, and it wasn't the same. It pissed me off to know. Yeah, Space Wolves Gray you got right there. Okay,
That's one
yeah,
of the
and then they
reasons
went to
why I
that.
started
They
to
went to
steer away
this.
from GW. Is they would do that. They would rebrand and change the colors.
Change the
and
colors
then-
and everything. I
Yeah.
hate that.
Yeah,
Well,
because
and
you've already
then
got half an army that's painted, man. And then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you've changed the colors on me. It's like, oh, thanks. You know.
well, and then not to knock a small company, but War Colors was doing. They did their '88 nostalgia line or whatever, and now they discontinued that. And now they're doing their '94 nostalgia line, and so it's
That's
like,
unfortunate
oh
that they
man,
discontinued it.
what if you wanted those? And
Yeah.
hopefully you could order some to fill in or to have extra if you wanted them. But, you know, then all of a sudden, so then I kind of get like Vallejo. At least they don't freaking change like my military paint colors a lot of times.
Yeah.
I've used them. But yeah, don't mess with my paints, man.
Yeah, no. That's
It's like
not
I
good.
have a whole bunch of stuff that was painted with GW, and then you come back and buy the same color that I painted it with, and it's not the same color at all.
Even in the same bottle, you mean, or just
Same
they
name.
call-
You know, it's like
Yeah,
they-
just the name's the same. Yeah.
yeah, the name's the same, but the color's not.
Well, now some of the contrast paints are actually the old '90s paint names, you know, but they're
But that's
Like-
the typical. We need to reuse that name to keep the license for it shenanigans. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and the
That's what that
recognition,
is.
like bubonic brown. Everybody knows what that is. You know, that's GW. That's synonymous with GW. So
But it's like
just a
as an
brown.
orc player seeing Nazdrag yellow, and it's like you guys haven't bothered to make a Nazdrag miniature since the early '90s. I see what you're doing here.
you're gonna bring the miniature back to go with
Yeah,
that.
just give us the goddamn miniature. Don't put a name in a paint after him. Just give us the goddamn miniature.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's funny. I find it funny when you're in you've been in wargaming long enough, and like you're in and around the industry. You kind of know some of the tricks. You know what's been,
Yeah.
you know what's happening.
Why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bolt action.
Well,
Yeah.
Little
What
bolt action.
is it? Bolt action. What was it though?
Japanese Army weapons teams.
Oh, okay.
It came today, so I had to.
Oh, nice. Where do you get your stuff from?
We buy a lot of it from the shop up there,
Oh, okay.
Game Castle, but some of the stuff they don't carry. You can order it directly from them, and it's or else you sometimes.
Yeah,
get
then
it
there's
off
no
Amazon.
shipping. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
just sometimes it's. Oh, speaking of which, if I can reach it, I could do it. Where's he at?
Gosh, we really haven't talked about BattleTech much tonight.
Oh,
That's why your mug is still full, or that's your second one, probably.
here's the new Case Blue book came out,
Send me a
this
picture.
week.
I like the look of that, dude.
and this is the new Italian. He's the Alpine troop. They came
Yeah,
with it.
Alpine. Yeah. I don't need an Italian Alpine troop, so. not
Which
gonna-
was really bad. It's like the Italian Alpine troops got sent in World War II, got sent to the Eastern Front on the steppes over by Stalingrad. I'm like,
It's where
they
the-
were like, where are the mountains? They keep marching and they keep marching forward. And they're like, where's the mountains? We can't find the mountains. So
Yeah.
life sucks.
Then the Caucasus Ranges would have been a smart place to sort of.
Yeah,
send
but
them. There's all
that's where
the
they probably
Caucasus
would have
mountains.
ended up. Yeah.
But they sent the German mountain troops there instead of along with the Italians. But no, the Italians got sent over by Stalingrad.
Oh, they got the short end of the stick today.
Yes.
Yeah, short straw. Stalingrad for you. Oh my.
But if since Palmer has requested we talk about BattleTech more, I am actually, like I said, I've been painting up my BattleTech miniatures. So what I actually have is I'm going to a tournament, and some of the guys are the variants. So this
is that a Warhammer? No,
it's an
no,
awesome. This
that's
is a
not-
new awesome. So I don't know if it's.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah, okay. Now you
So this is a
focusing
new
on-
awesome, but this is an Iron Wind Metals awesome because it's the one with the LRMs in the chest. This guy over here is actually the plastic one. So what they're
Like,
doing
that's the
is,
catalyst one.
yeah, the catalyst one. So you can get like your one in your core box set, but you can actually get, they're starting to do the new sculpts so they actually look nice. You can actually get the variants if you want them to be WYSIWYG. Doesn't need to be, it's Battletech, it's just a sheet. But if you want to go that route, you can actually get them in metal, you know? And they look
So that's the
nice, and
Iron
they're
Winds one, the
skinned.
painted one.
This one here, yeah, this guy is the Iron
Yeah,
Wind Metals.
man,
Came in
that
a
is
blister
nice.
pack, weighs a ton, but it's the new sculpt. So it is based
Cool.
off of the new plastic.
Okay, I like it.
So if you,
So what's
yeah,
your view
I
on
have a,
plastic versus metal?
I like that there's like a heft to metal miniatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But plastic, it just, I'm being reminded why metal was such a hassle back in the day, because you know, handling your miniatures and the paint chips off because you're still painting them or you haven't varnished them. I wasn't one for varnishing when I was younger, or you know, super
Priming them.
gluing it together, and then it's like, oh, you need to pin it, because I know when I haven't pinned that awesome, but I know that when I drop it, it's going to explode instead of bounce because it
Yeah, I
has
gotcha.
the weight in it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but no, I think it's nice that you can have an option of both, because I like the heft of it. You know what I mean? You feel if
Same.
you've gotten your money's worth when you're picking up a metal
Yeah.
miniature, you know. And then
Plus, you feel like a metal miniature. I mean, that can still be around in 100 years, right? I mean, whether somebody strips it and repaints it, or I mean, I've bought and stripped, a lot of old Hammer miniatures, and repainted them, and they're living again. Some of the plastic ones, they get stepped on, and they're
that's
done.
it, they're game
Yeah,
over. But you
they're
don't have to
done.
be as precious with the stripping of them. You can just, like, with the metal ones, you could throw them in pretty much anything that doesn't eat metal, which is most paint
Yes,
strippers and such.
yes.
Whereas, the horror show that happens when people don't realize for the first time when it comes to stripping plastic miniatures,
Yep.
and the acetone eats away at the
Yep.
miniature itself for the detail. You know what I mean? We've all
Yep.
heard the horror stories. So
Or the resin ones. I've seen people throw resin miniatures into things, and it just turns into a goo.
just you, yeah. And
For
a lot
me,
of, yeah.
it's give me metal or give me death.
Oh, you're
Actually,
hardcore.
Well, I say this, but I'm probably going to get some plastic bolt action. But I actually, like everybody has their preference, and there's a reason why they've gone, to plastics and over the, a long time ago now. It's not even new, but there's nothing like a metal miniature for me. Like like it's the things that Dwayne said, but then I even find that even though you can get in every medium, you can get the best points of every medium in some ways. Like you can get really sharp detail and really well done plastic. But in general, if you're going to get softer detail, it's usually not metal.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like metal is usually really crisp. I love the heft. I like it so much more. Like whether it be fantasy, whether it be historicals, I just prefer metal. Having said that, like there's advantages to all of them, and I really like the Marvel plastics. Like I enjoy those, and so like there's times when I like all that. But if you told me on one of them, because I know metal is probably eventually someday going to completely go away. If you told me on one of them that, like, if you told me that metal was gone, like I would be really disappointed. Like I would, if you told me plastic was gone, but like metal was going to still be here, I'd be fine with that.
Same. Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know.
I like the
I think it'll always be
customization
here,
of
though.
plastic.
I think it'll always be here in some regard, especially with small miniature manufacturers, just because of the upfront cost of producing with plastic. Like it's a big investment. Whereas, like, especially with smaller companies, they can get a small run of metal miniatures that they know they're not going to sell a lot of. But
they're probably going to go to resin first.
Yeah, well, it just depends. Some people
3D
don't
printing.
like resin. Yeah. Well, 3D printing, I don't think is the answer either, because the longevity of them, they don't, like, 10 and 15 years from now, when all these, like, 3D printed miniatures we've had, like, I've had friends who've already had problems with them just disintegrating and falling apart. You have to think of the longevity of them. When the metal miniatures are still around and we're all long dead, a lot of those 3D prints will have perished before we did, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be
worry about
like
that.
after the apocalypse, when like the area that I'm in is irradiated, like my skeleton will be holding my miniatures. It'll still the
Amen.
miniatures will be still fine, but I'll be like,
Dust.
Yeah.
you
One
might
of the
see the
things-
fillings in my teeth.
Now, one interesting thing that has been reminded to me about metal miniatures this week, which I have some winging their way from England today.
What'd you
is,
get?
Well, where's the box? Well, the box is behind me.
Some bolt action stuff.
Some
gotta
more
be.
Koreans. I
Okay.
picked up a North Korean light machine gun squad, and I opened up the box, and instead of all the guns are supposed to be like this, they were like that. All of them, and 3 of them were like bent and broke off. And I'm like, well,
Metal or resin?
metal,
Really?
because all the North Korean stuff, all the models are all metal. And I had the same exact problem last time I bought a light machine gun squad. The same exact thing. All the light machine guns, the Russian style one, all the barrels were bent and broke off. And like the bayonets or the rifle tips on the SKSs were snapped off. So it's like, send a picture to them. And it's like, good thing about Warlord is like, you send them a picture or something and say, hey, this is all broken. It's like, okay, we'll recast some new stuff and send it to you. No
Oh
problem.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course, because they're XGW, so they still have that sort of like good customer service. That is the only thing that I'd never be able to complain about with Games Workshop, was their customer service in regards to like broken or damaged miniatures.
Yeah.
They were just, yep, here's a new thing. Oh, and keep the old box as well, or whatever. You're grand.
I have a partial box of a one of my Mechanicus walkers, it's Dune Strider walkers. And I opened it up, and one of the screws is just like mangled up, because the box got kind of crunched or something. And I sent them a picture of it. And this is the problem. It's like, can I just get a new sprue? And they just sent me a whole new box. And I'm like, okay, I didn't need I just needed a sprue. Now it's like a partial something of,
It cost them the same, probably. It would probably be more effort and cost them more.
Yeah, because what are they going to do with them?
Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then now they've got a box missing a sprue. So what are they going to do with that?
Yeah.
I was
The other thing-
Warlord. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're continue. I was changing the subject a little bit.
Oh, I was just going to say that during the time when I was doing a lot of French Indian War and getting Warlord miniatures, and then Bolt Action too, the thing that really impressed me with them, at least 10 years ago, like when I did this, was that if they made a mistake, I won, basically, with them. And what I mean by that is when they actually had to send me a miniature that they didn't send, like they would send me like 28 French Marines, like, for French Indian War, and there was one guy missing, or one guy with his face like deformed or something like that in the casting. They not only sent me the replacement of the Marine, but they sent me a blister of that they saw I had not ordered within the range, as like hey, you know what I mean? Like, we screwed up. And every time they made it worth my while to wait. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, and no other company I've ever dealt with has done that consistently. I don't know if they still do that today.
I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem with a Warlord order, actually.
Okay, I had a couple, but they always made it worth my while.
I mean, I haven't ordered a ton, but I'll bet I've ordered, 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, they always seem to be really on the ball with getting stuff to you. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Is that I had a pack 40 for Waffen SS, and one of the guys that's pulling the lever he's sitting on the trails, and I picked him up and I went to go clean him up, and I looked at him and was like, he doesn't have any hands. Like, obviously he doesn't have the head, because the metal ones, they don't have the heads with them. He's glued those on separately. But I looked at it, it was like, oh, his hands are missing and part of his feet. Okay, so I just sent off a picture to him and said,
a grenade went off, or a landmine or something.
yeah. And within 5 days, I had the new model in my hand. I was like, well, I'm not going to put him on the model now, because it's already glued everything together. But like, that was pretty cool that they got to me that quickly.
Yeah.
And just the other day, Monday, I guess it was Sunday night, I sent the message off that the stuff was broke, because I picked it up on Saturday, and it's like I opened it up on Sunday, and it's like, all right, sorry, our bad. We'll send the stuff out to you. We'll get it to you, and I expect to see it probably by Saturday. The way how quickly they got it.
So have you gotten any of their Warlord resin then? See, I'm afraid all their support teams are going to go to the Warlord resin.
All resin right here in my hand.
What nationality are we looking at?
So far I've done have American squad team is all resin. The Japanese one I just did is resin, and so is the German. So the teams seem to be that fine cast stuff that GW is putting out. Same feels the same.
It's
way.
Warlord
What's the price
resin.
point?
It's their own thing.
Yeah.
Is it the same price point as metal?
It's $20, or I think it's
The same
25.
price.
It's supposed to be $25 to get a box, and you get, and this one had 6 models in it for $24.
Same price as what metal was, Dwayne.
Yeah.
But the metal was going to be higher.
So you're
Now-
getting shafted then. You're getting shafted.
Not-
So it's a
not
cheaper
necess-
material.
So not
In a way,
necessarily.
But they said the metals were going to be going up by quite a bit, so they're holding the price the same with the cheaper materials. What their claim is.
They're putting the
I wouldn't be
cheaper
happy about
material.
that.
The cheaper materials going in, and then they send you dice with it too.
Well,
Yeah,
So
we all
getting
know that
order
the fine
dice.
cast, the fine cast was the worst stuff ever. Like,
Oh yeah.
and in all honesty, the bubble, like the quality of it was just so bad. Like so often they would come with like
it was
bubbles
rushed.
and
It was
stuff in them.
rushed.
Yeah,
I
and
had
so I'm hoping
friends
the
who
Warlord
worked
stuff's
in Warhammer
better than
World.
that.
So what do you think of it,
and the-
Rusty?
What's that?
So what do you think of it? Are the barrels bent and stuff? That's what I've seen.
It's very light. Now, the one thing I want to do with these is that when I put them on
not.
the base, I'm going to put some sand and some liquid super glue to give them some weight.
Yeah, I'm just not. I haven't held one in my hands, but I'm.
The
Go back
details
to the
there.
metal. I'll pay more for the metal. Even I don't
Mm.
want the resin. I don't.
No. Like
Not
I
in
was
a
lucky in
miniature.
that regard when it came to me 40k stuff. In that, like I'd bought all my 40k orc stuff, like all of the HQ units and anything that was in metal before they brought in fine cast or fail cast, as I like to call it.
Failcast, yeah.
Yeah. We always-
And then they started bringing it in, and I felt bad for any new players coming in. So I don't know if you are going to have the same thing with bolt action. Like, charge me the same
know.
price point for metal for resin miniatures. I'm like, why? Why would I?
Yeah.
Me personally, I just feel like I get robbed. It's an inferior material in my eyes. If you drop it and it's made of resin, it's gonna shatter, man. Depending on the resin.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what you never know, Dwayne, because it's like there's all those. Even when you get into your own 3D printing, there's a million different resins.
They're
You
different.
know,
Yeah,
you get
this is
one
true.
that's
But
more
even-
like hard
even-
plastic or rubbery. I don't know.
Just
And
the
the other thing
material
is-
cost. It's like
and-
it's just a cheap. It's just a cut. I think for me, I'm like annoyed because it's a cost cutting measure. That's all it is.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, but of course they're claiming that the metal's it was just getting so astronomical that they just weren't going to be able to sell it. I don't know if that's true, or that's what they're
I
saying.
think
or
I'd be
what
like
does
you,
that-
Dan. I'd pay a bit more for metal.
I
I've
would
noticed-
too.
One thing is that what used to cost me, like the last time I bought a light machine gun squad for my North Koreans, 4 years ago when it first came out, and it cost me, I think, about 20, 22, 24, depends on what you're getting it through. Now you're looking almost $40 for a squad of 10.
Mm.
So the price has doubled in the last couple of years.
I've noticed that with Games Workshop. I went on to the web store for the first time in a very long time, and I was looking at the prices, some of the miniatures in euros, and it's just like, what?
Well, that's what
Like-
I'm interested to see what they do with the old world, because if they're going to bring back these Bretonian kits from the early 2000s, and are they going to charge $50 to $75 for a box of old miniatures like that? Because they did that with the Lord of the Rings stuff. Those old plastic goblins from the very first release, the Moria goblins. I remember when I got those, and I'm like, these are not good quality. I mean, they were cool
Yeah.
because they matched the movie, and I was excited to be doing Lord of the Rings, and but they weren't, and they're still selling them, and they're like, were they charging $40 or $50 for the box of them now? For crying out loud.
50, $60, I think.
I wonder how much of that. How much of that is the licensing? Because like we always, like I always know that like they've had Lord of the Rings for so long now on as their thing that it's easy to forget that it's like for a lot of people it's really expensive just to be able to maintain that license. I wonder like whether that's part of it. It's not an excuse as much as like if somebody
making excuses for them, get them.
Yeah, I mean it's like I'm not. You know, I don't
well, it'd
know.
be interesting to know, but see, you don't know, so we're left with speculation. That's the problem.
Yeah, because I actually, with the Marvel stuff, I always give sort of the company a bit of a break, just in the sense that I know that that's a hard elephant in the room to actually have to always please. The very fact that it's still here, I'm happy. Like, because like the last time a Marvel game came out, it lasted a year for me, and I bought all the miniatures, and then it was gone. The very fact that it's doing well. I'm happy about that. I think the price has to be part of the licensing, has to be part of it.
Well, I think so. In the likes of X-Wing and stuff, I like the look of the game, but I wasn't. When I looked at the price point of buying individual ships, like my friend Dim, he's one of the war bosses from the War Bosses channel we have. When I go over to visit him now and then, you know, we played a game of X-Wing, and I like how it plays, but I'm just not going to pay 15 or 20 euro for one pre-painted miniature. Especially when I like TIE fighters and I'd want about 6 of them. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, when it first came out, when that game first came out, you could pick them up for about $6-7 over here.
When you're part of that community, I know that it probably sounds totally normal to say, yeah, he's like one of the Orc war bosses. But it's just so funny to hear somebody refer to someone, a human, as like, yeah, he's one of the Orc war bosses. It's like,
it's a war boss.
One of my buddies, he's another Eldar.
That's what I think. It's because it's normalized for me so much. Like we have a WhatsApp group and a chat, and it's like everything's the war bosses. So I'm so used to it. Like
like one of the other war bosses. We've been beaten in between beating up on the squigs. We were talking about this.
Well, we're sitting there.
What we get up to in our spare time, like when it's not BattleTech, it's kicking Gretchen.
Swilling down some mushroom juice.
Oh, good grief.
You're talking about IP costs. It's like when Spartan Games picked up the IP for Halo, and they were coming out with the Halo game.
Yeah.
And that's what killed that company.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Not aliens? Because they did
the Covenant killed the aliens, and the Covenant killed them off. But yeah, it was they had to come out, and the bill came due because they picked up the IP and then they didn't get the game out on the market until almost.
That's what I heard. That and
then they weren't selling it well enough. They weren't advertising it at all. So
hardly. And then they got behind, and it wasn't viable. They just had to bail. Yeah.
I was really disappointed when they went under and they had the aliens, because they actually did an awesome tank, like for the Aliens movie, like the Aliens movie. That tank they had. They had some great miniatures for Aliens, I'm kind of an Aliens fan, and so I couldn't justify the price at the time, but it was just it was really impressive.
One of my friends over here had bought into it, and it was I remember him lamenting when they were going under.
Yeah, it was so good. Like I was disappointed I didn't even have it.
Then you had the Alien versus Predator. Who did that one? Was that company bought that IP and they were trying to market it, and then they just couldn't make it viable, and that killed them too.
I think Aliens has been a death sentence for a lot of tabletop.
Yeah.
There's like a board game now. Somebody's doing a board game with the miniatures or whatever, isn't there? There's like a box set.
Yeah. I think it's worked out better in that. I think that maybe the broader appeal of a board game and slower, like smaller entry point, maybe that's actually the reason, but it's done better as a board game.
Well, board games seem to be a larger market.
It's less niche than miniature tabletop gaming.
Yeah, because
the quality of the materials was better, I think, for the tabletop.
because you got a wide range of people that will pick up a board game. Like my daughter plays board games; she plays D&D, but to have her play a miniature game, she just kind of like, no.
It's a little much.
Yeah,
for a lot of folks.
Well, it's a whole different animal. Yeah.
yeah.
You have to be sneaky then. You have to get them the board games that are sort of very adjacent to wargaming miniatures. You know what I mean? And just get that slippery slope. It's like, oh, it's just a board game. Sure, you could paint the miniatures for it. You know what I mean? And while you're painting those miniatures, here, come play this game too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can start with, there's that game To the Strongest, that tabletop game, and they use a grid map or like Battletech or see. You got to sneak them in through the. It's just a board game, really.
I would love to play that game. I was really looking into that one. Fraser plays that one a lot.
Yeah, he just did a playthrough here in the last week or so, put up on his channel. And I was watching that because that kind of turned me off with the grid, and then it's cards, and I'm like, oh, what is this?
You can get
modern.
your table. You could get your table so you could barely see the grid.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a first impression, but once I actually watched it, I wasn't like, well, that's dumb, but my first impression was like, well, that's not something I would like. But then with the card deck that they had going, there was no dice and no measuring.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what's the point of that? But when I watched them play it, that was fantastic.
It looks really good. Yeah. I actually was really thinking about doing 6 mil, and To the Strongest about a year ago. And I probably will do it someday.
I won't. I don't. I got to draw my line. I just don't have enough lifetime left in me.
Now the interesting thing is that I just
something we should know.
A ton of.
I'm not 18.
Okay.
So I printed off a bunch of BattleTech infantry, just standard infantry. It's like you can be surprised at how many hundreds of little guys you can put on a build plate.
Yeah.
And it's like I cleaned them up. It's like I got to the point where I was like, I'm just getting sick and tired of cleaning these little guys. And it's like the last commission that just went out today. It's like I had to do in the video. I think you might probably could have seen some of them. That it's like, yeah, they look pretty good. There's a lot of detail in the little buggers. And it's like if you ever got into a game system, it's like, I'm going to do this 6 mil thing, but I don't really want to buy into something. It's like I'll just print a bunch of stuff off real quick and paint it up, and that might be the route to go.
Even if. Like for me, I have some of the Real Parte 6 mils. Sorry, Dan. I have some of the Real Parte 6 mils. I think they're the Davian troops, but they're dudes with guns and they're olive drab camo. So like what you're saying about 6 mil stuff. It's like that's just a unit. It could be any unit. You know what I mean? It could proxy whatever.
Exactly. You just put the different color. That's the thing is I used to buy the Davian troops and just paint them different colors for the different factions. You don't need to buy Karita troops or Lao troops or whatever they had. You just paint them different colors. Troops is troops. It's just a representation on the board. That's all.
Troops is troops. Yeah.
And for the longest time, I was using the old GW Epic scale 40K Epic troops as my BattleTech infantry. It's like it worked just fine.
Yeah, they were 6 mil back in the day, weren't they?
Yes, they were. They matched up very well. And then the other thing was that, to bring out this, I always like to say, it's like when we're talking about board games, BattleTech is a board game.
I know. Technically, it is a board game, which is funny.
With miniatures
That's
in
weird.
It. And then, but if you get rid of the hexes, then it's a tabletop game.
Yeah, that's so funny. So when is that big Kickstarter supposed to deliver? Like 2030 or what? Or is it
next year? They're actually pretty good on their deliveries of the Kickstarter stuff.
I think
like
they were saying.
Okay, I just wondered. March of next year already?
Was it March? I think.
Is it all in one wave? All one wave or multiple waves?
Oh, hopefully it's one wave this time.
Yeah.
They were saying that tomorrow we're supposed to get our digital downloads tomorrow. I think they were saying.
Oh, that's cool.
I found it amusing this time around. Like, so when the first Kickstarter came out, you couldn't really get BattleTech miniatures anywhere over here, really. So I went crazy. I spent way too much money, and I got like 2 of all the box sets. Because I was like, you couldn't get a hold of box sets. Like, you just couldn't. Like, if a Game of Armored Combat went for sale online with British retailers, it just disappeared. Like, you know what I mean? You wouldn't see it for months again. Whereas now they have more production runs more often. But I think because I opened like my little plastic wrap gaming store and I have access to miniatures now, I've kind of ruined it for myself. It's like I've shot myself by facilitating getting miniatures to other people. I've ruined the whole Kickstarter. Oh, you know, I'll get the joy of getting the miniatures. It's like, well, I'm gonna get them anyway myself. You know what I mean? I'll order a
Yeah.
box of 24 of them and, you know, sell them over a period of time. So I just find that unique. I find it funny. Like, but there's So I sat down and picked stuff on my pledge, and I haven't even looked at it in months and months. I'm just like, it'll get here when it gets here, you know, whatever.
The magic's over.
Well, on this last Kickstarter, my son backed it, and I backed, and my brother backed it. And we all looked at each other and, okay, are we going to get one of everything at least? So we like, all right, you get one, then you get this one, you get this one. All right, what's left over? You got picks left. Pick what you want then after that. So we should be able to get it one of everything in this latest Kickstarter with some extras, doubles up.
Nice.
But that's when you're doing group stuff together where a bunch of people are trying to figure out what to get. Because we all kind of just pull our stuff together anyway.
I'm looking forward to seeing vehicles become more popular because of the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Because they're in plastic, you know. You don't really see them that often now. Whereas it'll change the dynamic of the tabletop, the community sort of.
Well, in our last campaign game we just played last month, the vehicles are just slaughtering the mechs right now.
Yeah.
It's like the due to the fact that this little thing called battle value, it's like, yeah, the forces may be equal, but there's more shots coming down range from those guys and hitting us. And it's like,
well, you know what I mean? You need to use the tactics then. Don't let them get their weight of numbers against you. And, you know, individually a mech against most tanks will... Yeah,
they can't allow that for too long. They can't allow that for too long in BattleTech. That would be sacrilegious if the vehicles beat the mechs.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But I've always said...
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. It makes... So, like, in BattleTech, it makes sense if you're assaulting a planet to use mechs because you're getting as much firepower in as compact a form as possible just for the logistics of transporting. But when it comes to defending a planet, don't even bother with mechs. Just get lots and lots and lots of vehicles because you're spreading your defense out there and you're just using weight and numbers. So it comes to the logistics of transport within the game. That battle makes sense in that regard. Otherwise, no. If you're defending a planet, don't buy battle mechs. Buy like 17 tanks for every assault mech or whatever. You know, if they're super cheap, super crap scorpions, you know, the cheapest of the cheap, and put in like green crew, and it doesn't matter. He'll hit once in every like 4 shots, but so will the rest of his 12 mates.
If we put the lore aside, and if we put the game the game and the way it's designed aside for a moment, and we take a step back and ask ourselves, what's the most efficient use of your money to create a fighting machine? Would it be to build a big, complex, sophisticated robot that could walk on 2 legs and carry guns? Or would it be to have something on 4 wheels that could carry the same guns?
Depends on the environment. Are you fighting up a mountainside? You know, it depends.
I almost think if you're going to fight up a mountainside, that you put it in the air and have it fire down.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about.
Put it in the air with this little guy here.
But having it walk around.
Just get those Italian
I'm not so sure, but I don't know. You could say that about Warhammer too, though, right? Like, I mean, that's just the funny thing about science fiction, you know.
I mean, like, if you get down to the brass tacks of like the cargo holds of what you can actually put in drop ships that you're going campaigns with, it's like there's not enough space in these for all the ammo and spare parts and all the crew and the food for them, and like it's funny. It's like, okay, we need a dropship for all of our mechs. This is what you see in the tabletop. This is what people play with. Oh, and by the way, we need 2 other dropships that are just cargo ships, just for all of the stuff. Like,
yeah, here's a nerd brought up something interesting. Vehicles are so much more efficient battle value wise, unless you bring your LBXs. LBXs are the great equalizer of the vehicle world. It's like you hit a vehicle with an LBX 10, you usually immobilize it pretty quickly and do hardly any damage to it. It's like, well, you're a pillbox now. We'll just stay out of range of your weapons and smash you. And that's
Well,
the thing.
it depends on the rules you're using as well. If you're using force withdrawal, it's like it makes vehicles a lot more vulnerable because once they're immobilized and their turrets are stuck or whatever, the crews bail out.
Yep.
Whereas if you're playing with them to the bitter end and you've immobilized it, it's like, well done, I'm just a pillbox now. You know what I mean? And if it's a Shrek PPC carrier, he doesn't really care too much. I mean, he's easier to hit, but if you poke your nose out, you're going to be facing down 3 PPCs. So it just depends.
And if you got a lance of them, here comes 12 of them. That's good. You're going to know that you're receiving something. And in our last game, they're sitting behind us on the vehicle side. They have the LRM carriers backed up with SRM carriers. So it's like you come around, it's like, oh, now I can see this vehicle over here. I can shoot at it. But all of a sudden, it's like the skies are blackened with LRMs. And I had this Wolverine that was fresh, hadn't even been touched, and all of a sudden it's like the sky lit up and he gets hit with I think it was 9 LRM 20s, and almost they're like 16 to 20 points each hit.
And he was still standing at the end. I'm impressed.
The mech, no. His armor is scraped off, and then it was like there was 4 partisan tanks opened up on him. It's like the LRMs hit, ripped the armor off, then the partisans opened up on him, and it's like crit, and he
dead. It'll do it all right. And this is where your artillery support comes in. It's like, oh, they're entrenched. All right, well, that coordinate over there, fire away there, long toms, Or your air support comes in with the, doing napalm runs and, it's an escalation at that stage. It's like, oh, so you've entrenched yourself. Well, we have solutions to these problems.
Yeah, the worst thing was that they had this couple, what the heck were they? I think they were Patton tanks that were stuck in the battle position. And I walked right up to them with one of my mechs, and I was like, oh, you're in your battle position. And bam, 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 shot them both. And it's like, oh, they're immobilized. But we, like, crap. Like they're in a battle position, immobilized. They're not wanting to go anywhere. We're staying anyway. It's like, dang it.
It just depends. Like, are you like? I think forced withdrawal should be used on games unless you're playing like, okay, we're the last defenders or we're fanatical, because like even if you look at a historical context, like crews would bail out all the time if they got hit up, even if the vehicle wasn't destroyed or
it's like, we got ding through, and it's like, oh, we could blow up. Let's get the hell out.
We're out.
Yeah,
Like
that's how the Brits
captured like a Tiger tank was. The crew bailed and didn't blow it up. Like,
Infinity
Tiger
has
131.
Yeah.
I guess both Infinity and Sharp's Practice, 2 very different games that I played, use sort of that force withdrawal. Although you have like you're predisposed to a force withdrawal. Like dice rolls can keep you out of it for a little bit. That the worse it gets, the less likely it's going to happen. But I kind of agree. I like games where it makes more sense. Like most of the time, people are withdraw. Like when it gets to a certain stage, like there's a certain preservation of life that kind of happens.
Exactly.
Like I said, unless there's like fanatics or it's like the last defense, or you're doing like a holding action where we need to pretty much die to ensure the rest of the force gets away. Unless you're doing specific case scenarios where that would happen, it's like, you play force withdrawal. It speeds the game up as well, like, you know what I mean? So there's different with BattleTech. There are different things that will affect the length of the game, and it's like the size of the map you play on, if you're using force withdrawal or not, and then obviously like the size of the forces, so like the BV, and and the level of detail you want to go, what optional rules you are or aren't using. Are you like using floating crits can speed the game up, because you might get a floating crit that just blows the head off a mech, or it may slow it down in that you're blowing limbs off instead of hitting the center torso constantly and then killing the mech. So it just depends, like. But it's something that comes over time. You sort of learn. I'm sure Rusty
knows himself from playing. What slows it down and what speeds it up.
Now, one of the things we got the problem with is on the other side of the vehicles, they have their force commander has what dash and on, which says force withdrawal. As long as the commander's on the field, force withdrawal is not in effect. So they're stuck. That's the thing. That's what we're facing off right now. So we got to find out who their commander is to take him down. And when that happens, is like all these vehicles is like all you got to do is mobilize it. And they're like bail. They're done. That's it. Exactly.
It's like the Necrons back in like third edition. Do you remember there was once they took a certain amount of damage, they tend to phase out. Like it's like you've gotten us to that point. Half the army's gone. You won.
When I play Warhammer Fantasy Battle 6th edition, which I love, like the game exactly as is. One of the things though is that a lot of times you get to a point where you have to decide, do you want to continue like the game anymore? Like, like I'm usually the one that even if there's like a key element of the battle that's happening that would be nice to see, like to try, like, or whatever, like I just keep going. But then there's a point where you're like, I am so far beyond being able to win. This is, where there's really no reason to continue, and we shake hands and we're done. The force withdrawal mechanic in tabletop games, it can take away the awkwardness of determining whether you need to continue or not. You know what I mean? Like, like it, like the rules basically say like, yeah, you are pretty much past the point that you're going to be able to continue. And so that's an interesting component, and even from the player to player dynamic, you know what I mean, with the social contract. There's sometimes you wonder whether you need to continue. Like, do I need to continue to the last man? Like, it's usually not an issue within our gaming group, however way you want to go, as long as you're giving it a good shot.
Well, that's an interesting subject because when I'm playing games, I don't like to quit, and that's part of like the enjoyment for the other player. Like, I don't like playing games where we get to a critical point and the other player, it doesn't fare too well for the other player, and then they decide to quit. So say we're playing 40k and whatever, the game normally lasts 6 rounds, and something happens in turn 4 or turn 3, their key unit or whatever does, but if they put the effort in, maybe they could scrape it back. And they're like, no, congratulations, you won. And I'm like, but like, you could still, win this. You could still win this. Like, you know what I mean?
Even
like, no, that's it for me.
Even if I have a unit, even if I can give one unit the chance for valor, I will continue. But if I'm at a point where like I've had games where like the opponent still has 80% of their army and I'm down to 15%, and there's nothing left. Like there's like nothing left, and it's like, should we do another whole turn? And we've played for hours, like maybe at this point or something. And it's like, oh, you know what? Like this is really good. Like you won. I shake my hand. Let's just end it. But if I can give valor and if even from a narrative perspective, like there's benefit to continue, I'll continue. But I do have times where I don't go to turn 6. Like I do have times where I say, you know what? It's because sometimes I play during the week after work, like into the evening, and it is to the point where it's like there's no benefit here. Like we both got work in the morning, like we've had a good time, and like we just kind of shake hands and go on. But I don't like to take enjoyment away from anyone, and I do like to push the narrative and actually like get the most out of the game.
Back in I was gonna say back in 2nd edition 40k. It was almost this bad where you set the game up and roll dice and say, all right, you got the initiative. You just reach across the table. Good game.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Like that was about how bad it was, where whoever got the first turn initiative on turn 1 is like, oh, that's you won. That's pretty much how it worked. But yeah, it's one of those things where you try to play as long. I'm always the type that was like, I'm going to go as long as possible, but it's like eventually if you get tabled, there's no.
That's when you say, I'm sorry, what did I hear you say? This is our last game?
Yeah.
Hey,
Palmer, I was going to ask you, Palmer. You talk about playing. You play like at the game store or somewhere, like your Warhammer Fantasy, or you transport your army? Is my question.
I do transport my army, but it's usually to friends' houses. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you do it though? What is? Just curious.
So it's changed a little bit recently, but my main form of storage for that particular game is I have Uline boxes. Uline is also in the US, right? I think it is. Yeah. So I got a whole bunch of Uline white boxes.
Okay.
And then I bought sheets of the magnetic strip, and then I got I forget the name of the company, but I get them. I get all these little things that I stick on the bottom of the bases that are meant to go. They're basically kind of like metal-like. They're not metal. They're actually like almost like a reverse polarity magnetic strip that acts like metal. And I put those on the bottom of all my minis, and all my minis have the magnetic strips thing on the bottom. For big, more awkward models that don't fit in the box, or they're just too big for the box, I do have, I used to use whatever I could find. I've had like hamburger boxes with styrofoam in them, and like I've had like crazy things, like just to get like a model to a game.
Yeah.
Plastic jars filled with like stuff in them. Yeah. But I now have, I bought a used GW box that actually has, I never bought these when they first came out, but it has like the dividers that are like wavy. They're not like actual, and so I actually stick all my big models in those, and I carry that stuff for the big models, and then everything else goes in the stand-up magnetized. But now bolt action is totally different. I'm doing traditional. I do traditional like boxes with foam in my bolt action.
Yeah.
And then all my military stuff. Well, like my French Indian War is the same thing as it's all the magnetized stuff.
Okay.
This was the best buy I ever got off of Games Workshop, and it's pretty much what Palmer's talking about. But this is ideal for BattleTech. It's just it's like a little pistol case, and for kill team, and they just have like
nice.
The way you
oh man, that's
all
sweet.
you need. You know what I mean? I think that's another thing I enjoy about BattleTech is like I don't have to haul around the kitchen sink in regards to like 2,000 points of orcs. It's like that's it. It goes in the back of a backpack with my rule book and my record sheets, and we're all sorted.
That's pretty
like,
cool.
You know.
Yeah, that's why I'm getting into Godzilla. That new game. It's just one model. It's just they bring you have the terrain. I just bring Godzilla. And that's it. That's all I got.
Just pull them out of your pocket. Well, there we go. I'm ready to play.
Then the sequel, King Kong. Like you just one more miniature. That's it.
So you have two pockets. You're grand.
Right back here is where I carry almost. It's like I buy these Plano tackle boxes.
Yeah, that's how you bring your stuff to my play. Your bolt action, you bring that way.
Yeah, it's like they just fit right in there. It's like I get the thin ones from my BattleTech, and I just put this container here this box came with a little foam thing. I'll just cut it to size, put it in there, and then I just put the miniature in there. And you can carry up to a company worth of mechs in just one little box. Works good.
Well, my Warhammer Fantasy, I was debating what to do, but I magnetized the miniature, put that sticky metallic on the bottom of the movement tray, and then so they stick to that, and then I make my own movement trays, and so I put magnets in the bottom of the movement tray, and so I can literally take a unit of 20 metal like spearmen and stick it on the side of the refrigerator door.
Oh wow.
So then my thought was then I could take.
The question is, do you though?
Do I transport them?
Yeah, like do you put them on the side of the refrigerator?
No, but I did to show my wife.
For later.
You're like, I could, but I want to know, do you?
No, I did. I literally did. I showed my wife. Look at that.
Leaving units. Units of spearmen near the handle to keep people away from the fridge. It's like, don't be stealing my desserts. You know, like the goblin spearmen.
I'll put the questing knights next to the desserts. There's no doubt, or the Grail knights for sure.
That'd be a great marketing thing. And you can put and I can put my unit on the side of the refrigerator.
and slam the door.
Hands to the refrigerator. You have a whole army.
I mean, so I played a lot of 6th edition Warhammer Fantasy, and I played a little bit of 7th, but like I noticed, like in 8th edition Fantasy, the thing that I can never wrap my head around in regards to wargaming, especially for fantasy, was transporting armies, because I noticed that like the game kept getting bigger and bigger. So you got cavalry, and then it went to monstrous cavalry, and then it went to these big, gigantic centerpiece units that had big swirly bits coming off of them, and they're like that. And you're wondering how in the hell are people transporting these? Like, you know what I mean? When it's more of a display piece than a miniature, is when I get very confused with a game. I'm like, okay, this doesn't serve its primary function for me. But I think that's my perspective, because I come at it as a wargamer. I come at it as a guy who likes to play the games. If it's not easy to play a game with, then it's missing its point. You know what I mean? Its purpose in life. You're a wargaming miniature. If you were so hard to transport, or I'm so apprehensive of transporting you that I might break you, you're not fulfilling your role as a wargaming miniature. You know what I mean?
Well, and actually, 40K fell in the same trap. Like, granted, you didn't have the same number of models, but if you're talking about the big stuff, not only was 40K, did it go the side by side, like with fantasy, to the same thing, but also in some ways it was worse, because then you had people like getting off of buses with a Titan, and it's like,
I've seen people with IKEA boxes with Titans in them and knights and stuff to transport their army. Like,
oh, look, you got your son a big robotic toy. No, I'm on my way to my game. You know, basically.
I never understood those big centerpiece units. I mean, Warhammer Fantasies got that way in 8th edition too, and it's like you're playing on a 4x6 table, and this thing is freaking ginormous. And what is the? And I don't really understand the point, because like a giant back in 3rd or 4th or 5th edition was like manageable, but now all of a sudden it has to be like 1-to-1 true scale or something. And and like you said, between transport and painting, all that I mean, you about need a 6-inch brush to get the base coat on. It's just that doesn't really, and then it looks weird on the table. There, like you see him playing Age of Sigmar. Just I've watched it in passing, and there's these massive, I mean, like they've got 4 units tucked under the wings of this like demon thing, and they're all fighting. And I'm like, it doesn't even make sense to me. In the table, there's no room for that anyway. It's just I don't know. I don't like it, but people
Rusty
seem to.
was just showing a case that I just sent him a link of on the screen, because it was just an Amazon case, and I was like, is it a case made in China? But I was looking at it, and a lot of the reviews were pretty good, and it was like 50 Canadian, which like is a lot less than the US, and it was really fairly cheap. And basically the review said, if you're going to slam this against the walls and be really rough with it, then this isn't for you. But if you're just if you take care of, like, if you watch your case and you're not rough with it, this thing, it holds like 128 miniatures, and it's like 50 something Canadian. So probably it's like 35 US. It's really pretty good. I was thinking about getting it for bolt action, and one of the reviews on Amazon actually was for bolt action. Weirdly enough, it's the only game they mentioned, and they said, "Oh, you just cut the foam to fit your tanks too. Like, even though it's made for single minis, you can cut it up and put your tanks into." Because I don't want to spend too much money on storage. Like I've always struggled with that. Like, that's why I bought the U-line boxes and the magnetic stuff, because I don't really want to spend too much on storage. But this one looks pretty good.
That the one? Okay, you guys.
That's the one.
Okay.
That's
I splurged. It's the only game I transport, and it's the game I almost solely play as bolt action. And so back when I first got my first army and was going to take it to tournament, I did buy the battle foam case
That's
for
nice.
bolt action, and it was of course more affordable then. That was like back in 2015, 16, but it is. I mean, I've used it a ton. I have hauled it all around, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty spendy, but it works awesome.
My friend has one, so anytime we played like big apocalypse games with orcs, he had the suitcase one, with the handle, and
Yeah,
it was
that's what
just
mine has,
it
the
was
handle and everything.
it's just a stack of like foam. But
Mhm.
it was interesting because it played onto what Palmer was saying about like these big ridiculous units, and it started in 40k. It did. This is what happened with like Warhammer Fantasy and 40k is Apocalypse came out in 4th edition. And they were like, oh, super heavy vehicles. Yeah, these big units. And they were once off units that you used for Apocalypse game. What happened is over time, they integrated them into the core game. And so you have these big, huge, massive units like Baneblade tanks and Stompers and whatever. And the scale of the game grew. Because it even started at the end of 5th edition where, aircraft came into the game and things just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Games Workshop were like, we're making a lot of money on these in 40k. Do you know what would be great if we had them in Warhammer Fantasy? And that's literally what happened. And then
Yeah.
it got ridiculous. Now, in 40k, the thing about it is you use them once in a blue moon. You know what I mean? Like you dust them off, and it's like once a year we play a big mega battle, and you big your stomp it, and away you go. You know what I mean? But I think when it gets to the point where you're having the hull, the likes of that miniature, and it's like a stomp is like a child's beach bucket, like you know what I mean? Like it's big
Yeah.
enough. Doing that once a year isn't too bad, but having to do that every week to bring it down to the club, it's just ridiculous, man. You know what I mean?
Some people might
Well-
ask whether getting something that you use once a year is worth it.
Well, and some of them cost the price of
It's
a
a whole
small
nother
car,
discussion.
If you're
It's all a matter of what you want to spend your money on, right? Like that's up to the person.
Well, and some people just like to paint them, and I get that too.
That's true.
I just want to show you here. Jesse is working on his speed painting of I think it's Americans right now. You can see a
Yeah,
picture
he's
of it.
got Americans.
Nice, yeah.
So it's
Good
working.
work.
He's
Yeah.
getting a job done.
He's using
Absolutely.
the Army Painter speed paints then?
Yeah. So
No, that's
Cool.
interesting.
it seems to be working fairly well for him.
Yeah, is that what he's starting with? Is he a new painter then, or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Huh.
So he's working on. It's like I keep telling him, it's like, hey, just do it. Once you figure out how to do it, it'll go really quickly. You can have that army done in no time flat. And like he's getting motivated. It looks like he's motivated now. He's actually doing some painting, so that's a good thing.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's one thing I will say through the summer, even though I know I didn't game at all except for that bolt action tournament that I do every year, that 2-day tournament. But I did paint. In some cases, for weeks, I painted every day and made a lot of progress and really enjoyed the time doing that. Obviously, I definitely paint more than I play, but I always think that's probably going to become the opposite, where I'll get to where I play more than I paint as I get older. So I'd rather have these armies painted now and then
Yeah.
have them to be able to use. So
It looks like he said he's using Gore Grunta fur for the
guns. He
On
was
the
asking
guns.
for gun color.
Yeah.
I use Vallejo mahogany brown on my American rifles.
Yeah, it's like for me, when it comes to painting, like most of my
I might
historical
go to-
set, I just buy like Flames of War historical
Hmm.
paint
Those
sets.
are Vallejo paints, right?
Yes, and they got everything laid out and tell you what colors to put them on. So it's like it works really good.
Yeah,
And
that's what's nice about the Vallejo colors is
Yeah,
somebody has done the legwork.
I got the
Yeah.
British one, I got the German one. So I got all the different colors all laid out. So all I
I
have to
use
do is just,
coat d'arms for my Russians, though. They have a Russian paint set, actually, a coat d'arms. A pre-made set, which was weird.
yeah,
For my Soviets. They're not Russians, they're Soviets.
Soviets, nasty,
Gotta keep
evil
the
people.
distinction. Yeah,
Yeah, there is a difference between a Soviet and a Russian.
absolutely. You can be a Russian
gotta-
and a Soviet, but not necessarily a Soviet and a Russian.
Exactly.
I was given for free from my game store a Vallejo Model Air World War II paint set. So it actually had colors for like, it had 20 colors, and it really kind of meant to cover as many of the armies as possible, like where they crossed over and stuff. And I was given it for free. They just said, we see that you're painting World War II today, and like this, somebody ordered this and nobody picked it up. Like they didn't end up, they special ordered it and ended up not picking it up. So here, take this. And I'm using some of them for the painting project that'll be coming up, both finishing my Americans as well as, the only thing is it is airbrushing paint. And so I use it to some degree, either with the airbrush to do a big base coat or just to paint on with a brush a little bit. But I still buy model color. Like this is German beige, like right in front of me. And I'm actually using it for more time right now, but I will be using it for the Germans I'm going to do coming up.
What'd you decide? Have you put more thought into German miniatures? We were messaging.
You had me thinking a lot. Yeah. Like I totally appreciate your point. I totally think you're right about the box sets for Warlord games. They're not like geared towards getting you the best sort of compositions, of like, let's say lists and things like that. And however, they're economically, it's really hard to argue against them. And what I've been thinking about it, because you see, like I was looking at the German Grenadiers. I can get 2 to 3 extra models, actually, in some cases, for the price of buying their set on Amazon. Like it's so, in some ways, if I was to just get the ones that you told me were the better ones, like in that one, like like let's say the troops and like the mortar and like in this case the Panther, no, not the Panther, the Puma. If I was to just get those, it would cost me about the same, like individually. And then I was watching some videos on the tanks I should get. Like, like I was looking at like how like the Panzer III might be a good choice. For
early war, Panzer IV is a good.
Yeah. And then like the Panzer IV, Panzer
III better than the Stug, because the Stug is overpriced compared to a Panzer IV.
The 3 was actually, some people put the 3 higher when you considered all tanks for the points. So like if you wanted to include something in, like they were talking about the Panzer III as being, but they also listed the Panzer IV right around
Panzer
pretty close to it.
IV is a better buy than a Stug.
Yeah, okay, then a Panzer III?
Because it's got a turret. Without a turret in bolt action, you're in a bad way.
So the 3 had a turret too, right?
Panzer III? The 3 had a turret. It was just the predecessor to the Panzer IV.
Right.
The Stug
so they were talking about the 3 they were talking about from a points perspective. It might be a better buy on the points, but they were still saying that the 4 is better. Like, like as far as like
but I mean between the Panzer IV and the Stug.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what I was
the same chassis though, wasn't it?
Sorry?
The Stug was based on the Panzer IV chassis, was it? Or was
it
on Panzer III?
Panzer III, but the main thing is it has no turret.
Yeah, well, that's why they started doing it, because they were cheaper, like, and they wanted to get.
So you asked me what I thought I was going to do.
Yep.
And I still have some time to think about it, but what I'm kind of leaning towards is I'm leaning towards getting the Grenadier starter army, and getting the Grenadier. Sorry,
that's okay.
The Grenadier starter army, and basically getting like the plastic infantry to start, and getting a couple of extra ones and working on my paint schemes with them and getting those extra models for my economics and then supplementing with some medals for special infantry and probably Black Tree, and then also getting a couple of tanks that are and models that are just a bit better suited,
more competitive
for the game. But I still thought like it'd be nice to just paint up the Stug first and just kind of work on my paint.
Stug's iconic. I mean, it's great to have a Stug. It was just a matter, but like the Pack 40, you'll use that once in a while just because it's cool to use, or against somebody that is not ultra like competitive, wants to stomp your face into the ground. Otherwise, you do not want that on the table in bolt action. It's
because it just won't do what you need it to do.
It's unwieldy. You can't. you can fire its forward arc. It's too easy for a mortar just to just start dropping rounds on you. You can't move. It's too big to even push with the troops.
So is the
And
medium machine gun?
It costs way too much for being.
So is the medium
non-mobile.
machine gun not good because you can basically just take with Germans, get your extra dice, and just take like the light machine guns and run around with them?
Yeah, you'd be better off buying even a small squad over, because again, it's a mobile unit, but you need to set up, and then your arc of fire. And if you're on a table that has any terrain at all, you're almost always in a spot that doesn't.
You choke points. That's about it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes
sense.
Talked
about redoing the rules. Like every time it fires, it should always should do 1 pin, or it can do D2 pins. You know, because it's just. Because you roll and you're rolling your 5 dice or whatever, and depending on whether it's American or German medium machine gun, and then you roll those 5 dice, and by the time you've got range and cover, you're needing 5s or 6s maybe to hit. Well, maybe you get a hit, and it's just, and then you're facing the wrong way, or you're all set up and there's nobody that you can see, and so it just, you almost never see it in tournament play, which is an indication of its competitiveness. I play them, like Mark and I that play, and Rusty and I, because I'm not trying to win a tournament.
Well, maybe the competitive format needs to change then, because like the format that's used for BattleTech over here anyway, it's kind of like, well, I don't know how you deal with bolt action, but like over here, it's like there's pairings for each round that you pick, because if you just let people decide whatever units, there's always like optimized units no matter the war game, and you'll see the same units again and again and again and whatever the meta is.
You see the same Gurkhas are overpowered. You see them, everybody. I mean, Gurkhas, I didn't even know what they were, and I knew a lot about World War II, but like, you don't go to a tournament that doesn't have Gurkhas, and there's motorcycle units that the Italians can take, and there's just different things that are just like, and nobody takes a medium machine gun. All they have to do is tweak the rules, and people would take them. I mean, it's iconic. Every army should. There's 50% of the army should have a medium machine gun team in it. MG42 or 30 cal. That's how it was. The rules aren't geared for that.
Somebody said that because of the way they've in bolt action, because of the way they've marketed the game and released the models and starter boxes, that there are more Pumas on the bolt action tables than were in production, like for the actual war.
Because there weren't many.
But everybody's using them, right? Because they not only are, I guess, not bad in the game, and they came in all the starter boxes, and so it's kind of funny.
I almost never see them in tournaments around here. But it might be partly because that's a newer starter box that's had that Puma in it. That wasn't a thing for very long.
But I did watch some videos. There's some good channels.
Pumas
on
are
YouTube.
good,
and they one of the things
I
I was
good
surprised.
firepower, mobility.
I was surprised at some of the really niche vehicles in the German army and bolt action that some folks are recommending using, like, just because of the fact that, like, they're just really metaing, like really gaming, like, trying to squeeze as much as they can out of the points and out of the situation. In some cases, they're using some really funky looking vehicles, like, and that's kind of fun, actually. Like, I think that's one of the fun things about maybe playing the Germans is that
there's so many options.
The Americans, but there's just like so many cool things. It's like a reminder of how reality is, that saying, reality is stranger than fiction. Like when you actually look at the German vehicles, like from World War II, there's more variety than like the fictional world of 40K with vehicles. So in an actual, so like in an actual game where you could just dream something up and like make whatever you want, ideally you would think like, you would just have a ton of variety. But in reality, to mimic what really happened in World War II, and you look at all the German vehicles available, it's amazing. Like the line is amazing, like, but the amount of stuff they did, and then what they said, and from what I started reading on the German stuff, is they said that much of what they were so technologically forward and changing things and doing stuff that much of what they did never even got seen the front line in a popular way. Like there was just like lots of variety that isn't even available that they did. Like it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, their industry was starting to get worn down, and resources were getting short before some of that stuff. You know, if they could have developed or got it, you know, into the field a year or two quicker.
You saw Captain America, right?
Game changing.
You saw the stuff they used in there in Captain America.
No.
Hydra. Like you heard about Hydra, right?
No.
These are talking about
what are you talking about?
YouTubers for like historical videos. Have you watched Laser Pig? His video on the T-34?
Laser Pig, no.
Ah, dude, watch it. It's basically he's like the T-34 was a heap of garbage, and here's why. It's brilliant. Go look it up. You'll love it.
And it is a heap of garbage. They just cranked them out. That was the key.
Yeah.
That was the key.
Yeah.
It wasn't even really a tank. It was a tractor.
Yeah.
It's like when the turret moved, the crew had to round inside. Yeah,
there was no basket. It didn't have a basket.
Like,
but
the turret moved, just like get over top of everything that's laying on the floor.
The German army in bolt action though is one of the more challenging ones in my opinion. I mean, not of the main factions. I mean, I can't. They've got every sub faction out there now that I don't know everything about. But
when I played it, and I'm interested in your thoughts. But when I played it, before you say your answer, I want to see before I've heard it whether I'm right. Because from first edition, the biggest thing for the Americans was the aircraft. Like I found that it was really devastating when the forward air observers called in aircraft.
Just because you can call in 2 strikes, that's the difference in the Americans.
And
they're able to call in 2. Everybody can have an observer to call in an aircraft, but the Americans could call in 2.
But they're so devastating, right? Like the airstrikes were so devastating.
Well, they are. Sometimes you bomb yourself too.
Yeah.
But I guess in first edition, that I found that was the thing that was a huge separator for the American army. Like in my opinion, I don't know since how many times and what they've changed. Like with second edition, I haven't even read the rules yet. But the only other thing is just I thought the extra machine gun fire dice was a pretty good advantage for the German player. At least even back then, but I don't know. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Well, with the Americans, I found is their ability to move and fire.
That's for if it's your first army, do Americans. It's simple. They don't have 53 different hand weapons they can have, and submachine guns and assault rifles, and then the move and shoot, because you're inevitably as a beginner, you're not managing your position on the table very well, and you're like, oh man, I needed to be about 3 inches over here, either to see or to be in cover or something, and there you can move with no penalty. See, every other army, when they move, it's a +1 for move, and then it's +1 for light cover, and then it's +1 for range. You can throw one of those pluses away, so you can be shifting your guys around every turn, and not have that movement penalty and still shoot. It's awesome.
The difference between hitting with 6s versus super 6s.
Which is huge.
That makes a big difference.
And then the BAR is nothing to laugh at either. But the biggest thing that makes the Germans complicated is, well, 2 things. One, their stuff is expensive, so you're a lot of times going to be short on order dice, and being short on order dice can kill you, because not only do you lose initiative, but if you're running more elite squads, but you've got less of them, if the other guy can shoot twice at you and not kill anybody in that because they're veteran squads, but put 2 pins on you, before you got to go, all of a sudden you're in a bad way. I've had veteran units with only 1 pin, and in a 6-turn game, they lost 1 or 2 turns because they couldn't pass their order check. And then the other thing that's complicated, of course, they got the movement penalty, which every other army does. And so if you're in the wrong position there, then you're like, dang it. But if you're building squads with a combination of rifles, submachine guns, and assault rifles, which is common and not even silly to do, but it's mental gymnastics sometimes because it's 3 different ranges, several different amounts of dice that each one's throwing. And so then, it gets a little daunting, where for the Americans, you're either rifles, and then if you're early or mid-war, you can have 1 BAR, which throws 2 dice and it's 30-inch range. It's, it's just a lot simpler to do. But the order dice is probably the toughest things on the German side. It's tough in a 1,000-point game to get yourself even like to 12 order dice.
Mhm.
It's just 12 or 13 max, and you really need in a 1,000-point to have 12 or 13 dice, or you're. I've had people at tournaments bring like an SS army, and they've got like literally 5 or 8 order dice, and they try to make that work. And occasionally, because they're so powerful, they will roll over somebody, but usually they're just you just get mauled by.
Well, let me ask you this then. In your experience, from what you know personally in your tournament scene, but as well as what you watch on YouTube, what are, competitively speaking, usually the top armies right now in bolt action?
Well, the British are tough. A lot of people like to use the British Gurkhas. The frickin' free artillery observer is a son of a buck. That son of a bitch.
Well,
Every time.
I figured as much, yeah.
That's extremely competitive. I would say Americans are mid-pack. Germans are mid-pack. They struggle too. Italians can be good. Actually, the Finns can be really good. Hardly anybody runs Finns, but I've seen Finns a couple times in tournament, and they've got a couple special rules that are amazing. I think it's still, to me, I would say, of course, it's a British company, right? But it seems, and I'm not saying they're overpowered, but they've got some builds, and that's the problem. And I'm not into tournaments, and when I go, I try to take a list that'll be competitive, but I'm not a power gamer. So I kind of, my force usually makes sense, and I'm not getting it. See, that's the problem now in bolt action. They've got 53,000 campaign books and army books out there, and they've all got these special rules. And the tournament I go to says you can use anything out of any campaign book, single or dual platoon, or any army book. And so there's some really kind of weird shit, from some specific battle that people will take. But just when I'm gaming, like especially with Mark as my main bolt action buddy, and we're always taking, basically something you would have seen, in real life and in those combinations. And we're about 50-50 then, and I'll play American or German or Soviets, and he'll rotate. And so it's well balanced. It's just, if you want to do a power build, you can.
That's kind of what I was kind of getting at. I was wondering, because it sounds like from your experience that it's not a horribly balanced game, because like you had you had some good ideas, like right up front. You're like, the British are definitely a little more consistent. We could, like, for these reasons, but overall, you sounded like
it's fair. Yeah,
not too bad. Yeah,
not too bad. And you really can actually even play, like, the next army that I'm going to do for bolt action is Polish. Early war Polish, 39 Polish, and they'll be. I could make 1,000 list that I could take to that tournament, and I could finish probably mid-pack with them. It's that well balanced. I mean, and maybe even slightly below half, but I mean, I would not be getting tabled every time. And you'd say, well, why could a 39 Polish army compete with a late war, whatever, German or whatever, Japanese? Yeah, because they pointed things out reasonably well. There's just combinations of things, and then tends to be those people that think that way are also the people that play like every weekend, and they know how to game it. They're thinking 3 turns ahead. They know how to work their squads together.
It's not made for the button counters. Bolt action is not made for the button counters, right?
No, it's no. And of course it's, well, yeah, some people are, but if it's more heroic gaming, so people tend not to get real button counter.
But it's like games that are made to be games, like to some degree, you want them to be a little bit like balanced, and you know,
and
they're
that's
not
why it
making
is. Yeah,
they're
people
not
say it's not
making it-
realistic enough, and that's why they move on to Chain of Command supposedly, because that's a more sophisticated game than bolt action. And
Well,
this is too
I like the
Hollywood.
two-part Lordy stuff.
I do too. I absolutely do too. And I have Chain of Command, never played, but bolt action is so accessible and it's well enough balanced that
It's fun.
Anybody can compete. It's fun. It's easy to pick up. It's a game. It's not a simulation.
Right.
You know, it's Hollywood. Every game tells a story, and that's what I love. That's my favorite thing about playing a game, and that's why tournaments aren't my real scene, is because I like the story that it tells and following the squad. Like, remember they were over here and they were in this firefight, and you know, it's like it's a movie. Every game I play with a friend, in particular, is literally a movie.
When we played Army Men as a kid, the kid that said they never used rubber bands never got to play.
Oh God, yeah, we used to play Army Men. So this to me is like a dream come true. It's I'm not trying to simulate anything. I'm not it's supposed to, it's a game that has a World War II flavor feel to it. That's all I'm asking for.
When I started getting back into this again the second time, just buying the books and reading through it. For the first time, because I didn't, after getting out of Warhammer 40K and going to bolt action last time, I didn't really think of this, but I did think of Army Men because I'm playing Army Men as a kid, and I thought that's why this is so popular, because to a big degree, we all played Army Men as kids.
Oh, we all did. I played,
and what is this? This is just Army Men with rules, like in all honesty.
That's when I tell my friends about what I do, and that's what I just, if it's a guy, it's easy to just say, well, remember when you used to play Army Men out in the dirt or the sand pile or your living room floor? I said, this is this. Only like this weapon rolls this many dice and can shoot this many inches. It's just adding like rules onto that.
It's adult, sophisticated Army Men.
Yeah, or at least teenager.
And you paint them too.
And then you make the train real, and then they see it, and they're kind of like, well, yeah, that, because they remember. Most people remember doing a little bit of that. And one thing I was going to mention, Palmer, remember? Okay, you were out of bolt action, right? But you came back in, and there's literally 2 books that have changed since you left.
Yeah,
this is not Games Workshop here. The rule book has a second edition, and the German book has a second edition, and that is it.
And I was looking for the second edition for my Americans, and I
there is none.
I know.
That's the only second edition.
And I looked, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me! This book still works from 10 years ago."
Yes.
I couldn't.
There's errata to find some small things that have been either found or tweaked, which they have for free on the website. But yes, not a single book, anything has changed except those 2, and they're very affordable.
So much time looking, it was like I would go over to the Warlord Games website and I'd be flipping through. Oh yeah, that's the rule book. Okay, go. And it wasn't until you said, "Well, there's a second edition rule book," and I was like, "What? There is?" So I had to go back and look. I guess there is a second rule for the Germans,
and it's been out quite a while too. It's not even like now. And they said they needed to do that one because it was like their first one, and it had a bunch of things that really needed updated.
And like I said in my video. The one thing that makes me really happy about buying the second edition is that it's a book produced just as well as the first, because
or slightly better. I started with the first edition. Yeah.
Well, I have both of them over there.
Refinement, then, it's
I
not.
don't know what
like
I mean by I meant the paper and the
production.
Like, the production is
quality
beautiful.
Is
it's a beautiful book.
Even better in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the first one was excellent, and I think the second one is excellent. And I was like, you know what? The only thing that's I guess I felt a little bad about putting the first one on the shelf and saying like this is like an old codex from GW. It's done, because it's such a nice book. But the only saving grace is that this other one is just like
it's as good.
It's really good, and it's beautiful. So
not many of the rules have really changed. They went to templates for your HE.
I saw that because I didn't know what those were.
Personally, like it actually does what they wanted it to do. They make you physically spread your guys out. You know, I mean, how many times you watch a war movie and they're like spread out, you know, because you're
As
dropping
a
mortar
well-trained
rounds on you.
military individual, it's like if you can touch somebody, you're too close.
Too close. And so this makes you spread out because you want to be bunched up usually because you're trying to be behind that stone wall and all within range of your target. So you're all in a big wad trying to do that. But you can do that, but you're in danger of HE dropping on your head. So then you got to make that tough choice. Do I want to concentrate my firepower, have everybody in this hard cover, everybody can shoot, or do I want to spread them out because I'm going to get hammered by some HE? And so it does what it should do there.
Yeah.
It's funny how like including or removing template weapons from a game changes the behaviors and playstyle of players. Like as a 40k orc player, having hordes of boys, that used to be the thing where it was when there was big templates, the unit coherency of 2 inches, all of my orcs were 2 inches apart from each other, and they were these big sort of spread out blobs. But as soon as they got rid of templates, it's like, well, it doesn't matter anymore. So they're just these concentrated masses of green anger.
Balls of orc. Orc balls.
Exactly. Like,
The orc.
But it's
Anyway,
interesting that's what a good rule mechanic changes the behavior of the game, like the players.
And that's what a good rule should do. You know, it should encourage you to naturally do what either, you know, what the fluff is for your army or the realistic situation should be, without you making you feel like you're just following a rule. It's like, well, now with mortar coming in, I want to be spread out. So you're all like, okay, well, everybody's spread out. So, where before it wasn't a thought either way, because it used to be if they hit with a mortar, it was just a D6 for a medium mortar and a 2d6 for a heavy mortar. That's how many hits you took. And so it didn't matter how bunched you were. So that's pretty sweet.
Well, not to be a Debbie Downer, but
already
we used to always do 2 hours, and I think we've increased now, and we're normally doing things like 3.5 hours and stuff. But I do have to go to. But you guys can continue. There's no reason why like my leaving has to end the show. So I am probably going to need to step off. But just as we were talking about some great bolt action stuff that I'm very interested in, but
that's
kept you going. It kept you going. Yeah, it's understandable. No, I'll probably have to head off myself. It's like 20.
Yeah, I probably should too. It's I figured.
I'm sorry, Rusty. I always do this. No.
What time is it there?
Here it's just come up to 11:30.
It's 28 minutes past 5 in the morning.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's only 12:30 here, so it's a difference of 5 hours. So
Dwayne's like amateurs.
Amateurs. I specifically tried to get a few hours sleep beforehand, set me alarm, and then the plan is to literally like get 2 hours sleep and then get up at 8 in the morning for work. Like just
as Dwayne walks
dedicated to the cause I am.
As Dwayne walks into work,
there'll
be an orange dinosaur walking in front of him, and then I don't know, like everything's going to be like psychedelic and surreal around you because you're going to be like completely out of it.
I was at a games convention last weekend, and I got a whole slab of Red Bull for free. They were giving it away, and I was like, so I'll take a couple of them to work tomorrow. I don't normally drink that stuff, so like I'll be like Duracell bunny rabbit and
do the trick.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us, giving like that's dedication.
Yeah, I enjoy coming on and chatting to you guys. You know what I mean? I don't get to talk to you that often, so when the opportunity comes up, I have to seize the moment. You know.
Yes,
and Farmer Dan as well. I love being able to have a chat with you guys. You know?
Yeah.
What I'm gonna say is that anytime you want to come on, just let us know. Get a hold of us.
We'll just bug him every once in a while. We'll say, hey, we'll make him come on again. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so this is the end of the show. So in 2 weeks, we'll be over in Palmer's channel, and today's the third. It was the second. Now it's the third.
It's a 2 day.
So add 2 plus 14 is 16. So the Thursday the 16th. So that's the next time we'll be back over at Palmer's channel. So everybody, I hope you guys come back and join us again in the chat, and we'll see you again. So good night, everybody.
Thanks for everybody.
Good night or good morning or wherever you are.
Whenever you're watching this. All right.